Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has Yondaime's legacy in Konoha. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by KINGBLUE10 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Prologue. Three figures were silently walking through the dense forestation surrounding them. The three of them were mere genin participating in the annual Chunin exams. The team consisted of 2 shinobi and 1 kunoichi, the standard arrangement for genin teams in Konoha. Among the three was a young ninja named Naruto Uzumaki. He walked behind his 2 other teammates with the sole purpose of covering their flanks. Naruto was a young man with spiky blonde hair and whiskered cheeks. In front of him were his 2 other teammates, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. The blonde genin trod across the forest attempting to be stealthy, but his outfit prevented him from doing so considering the fact that he wore a full and bright orange jumpsuit, a color not really suited for camouflage. In front of him was his kunoichi teammate, Sakura Haruno. The young pincat wore a bright red dress. This probably wasn't the best outfit for a ninja, especially in their current environment. Much like Naruto's orange jumpsuit, Sakura's red dress prevented her from concealing herself from possible enemies or attackers. Finally at the front of the line was the last Uchiha himself. Unlike the other 2, Sasuke had simple yet effective clothes. The raven-haired boy wore a long-sleeved dark blue shirt along with brown shorts. It didn't stand out as easily as an orange jumpsuit or red dress. He stayed at the front of the group mainly because of his Sharingan. It helped him detect any possible enemies up ahead. The three of them were completely silent. They didn't want to attract any unwanted attention. They simply went about their business, hoping to sneak up on another group of genin to steal their scroll. "Ton!" Totapa, a sinister voice yelled out. "What the hell?" yelled Naruto as the three began to feel a sudden gust of wind directed at them. They knew this wasn't just some strange weather, it was obviously an attack. The 3 genin shielded themselves from the powerful winds. They were being pushed back slowly, but they used their strength to keep their feet on the ground. Suddenly the wind stopped as a large plume of smoke appeared in front of the 3 genin. "What? More enemies?" said Sasuke as he examined the 3 mysterious genin. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock as he saw the ninja in the middle of the 3. "It's that creepy Kusa guy from earlier on," he said to himself. Naruto was extremely annoyed by the surprise attack. After dusting himself off he faced with the Kusa ninja with an angry scowl. "Hey you bastard, I'll get you for that. I will kick your ass," he yelled. The Kusa ninjas didn't pay attention to the loud blonde. Instead the creepy Kusa ninja faced his 2 teammates. "You two just go and play around somewhere else, I'll take care of these 3, he said. The other 2 nodded before disappearing. Both Naruto and Sasuke scowled as they saw how confident the Kusa ninja seemed to be. The Kusa ninja examined the 3 of them. "I thought my wind attack would have separated the 3 of them. Oh well, it makes no difference, they're only genin anyway," he thought to himself before grabbing something from his pouch. He raised his hand to show the 3 genin his scroll. "If I am not mistaken, the 3 of you have a heaven scroll and I have an earth scroll in my possession. How about we fight for each other's scrolls with our lives on the line," he said before placing the scroll back in his pocket. The mysterious ninja then began to unleash and flare his chakra. Both Sakura and Sasuke began to tremble in fear as they fell to the ground. They couldn't believe how powerful his killer intent was. The only one who remained unaffected was Naruto. He continued to stand his ground as he stared down at the Kusa ninja. He too felt his power, but he was not intimidated one bit. One thing was clear for the genin of Team 7, the Kusa ninja was no ordinary genin. The mysterious ninja stared at his 3 opponents. He was quite impressed by the blonde's ability to withstand his killer intent. Only the strongest or the bravest of ninjas were able to oppose the killer intent of a Sannin. "Fukuku, I'm impressed that you're still standing. I may have underestimated you, brat. What's your name, brat?" "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm the future Hokage of Konoha. You're going to regret attacking us, you creepy bastard," he yelled back. "You may have been able to withstand my killer intent, brat, but don't get cocky. You 3 pose no threat to me." Naruto crossed his arms as he stared into the Kusa ninja. He failed to notice the state of his 2 teammates. For one, Sasuke laid down on the floor. He couldn't find the strength or the courage to stand up and face the Kusa ninja. The killer intent of their attacker proved to be too much. Sakura was in the same position. She was too frightened by the Kusa ninja, but she was surprised at how Naruto managed to stay calm after the enormous amount of killer intent. She gazed at a raven-haired teammate and she could barely believe how much fear was in his eyes. For Sasuke to panic this much, "I've never seen him like this," she thought to herself. It was then Naruto turned to his teammates. He was shocked to see them trembling in fear. "Hey guys, what's the matter with you? Stand up and let's fight this guy, let's show him who's boss," he exclaimed. Sasuke simply glared at his blonde teammate. "Dope, are you fucking crazy? Did you not feel his killer intent? We need to run away from this guy, he'll kill us," he said. The Kusa ninja laughed sadistically, you should listen to him, brat. Prey should always be trying their best to run away when in the presence of a predator, he declared. Sasuke regained his composure, he stood up from the ground and grabbed the scroll in his pouch. We'll give you our scroll if you promise to leave us alone, he said as he held up the scroll. Naruto's eyes widened in shock, he turned to his teammate and punched him straight in the face. Sakura was surprised to see Naruto attack Sasuke. Naruto, you baka, what are you doing? Why did you attack Sasuke-kun? She screamed in anger. Naruto ignored Sakura's outburst, instead he stared at Sasuke with a cold stare enough to make his spine shiver. Sasuke, what the hell are you doing? Why would you give the scroll to the enemy? He yelled. Sasuke wiped the blood away from his mouth as he glared at Naruto, do you not understand the situation we're in? We are about to die, we need to give him the scroll. Naruto walked closer to Sasuke and punched him again, who the hell are you and what did you to the real Sasuke? What the fuck are you talking about, dope? The real Sasuke wouldn't give up in a time like this, you must be a fake Sasuke or something. The Sasuke I knew was no coward. Sasuke's eyes widened, he couldn't believe Naruto's words, and worse, he couldn't believe what he had just tried to do. He was no coward, he was Sasuke Uchiha, and he didn't back down from anybody. The last Uchiha stood back up to the ground before walking to Naruto's right side, the two simply glanced at each other and nodded, this was a sign of their acknowledgement for one another. Naruto looked down this time to glance at his longtime crush, Sakura-chan, please go and look for a place to hide. We'll take care of this, he said. Sakura shook her head before also standing up from her spot, you don't tell me what to do, Naruto, I'm a kunoichi, and I can handle myself. I won't let you guys risk your lives while I run away, I'm sticking here to help you too whether you like it or not, she declared before walking to Naruto's other side. Naruto chuckled softly, I guess there's no persuading you, is there? He asked. Sakura grinned as she shook her head, remember what Kakashi-sensei said, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. I am not abandoning you guys, she said. The three were broken from their conversation as they heard a sarcastic applause, there was no surprise that it came from their attacker, the mysterious Kusa ninja. What a touching display, once again you impressed me, Naruto-kun, this time you managed to rally the troops, too bad all of you are going to die, he said. The Kusa ninja unsheathed his sword as he ran at the three ninjas, from the three genin Sasuke was the first to act. Heian. Nkakik no jutsu. The Kusa ninja stopped in his tracks, he was unimpressed by the size of the fireball. He went through his own hand seals to counter this attack. Oten. Dorakeki. The large stone wall emerged from the ground blocking the fire attack, Naruto was next to jump into action. The young blonde formed a familiar hand seal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he yelled. Around about 50 Naruto clones popped up and all of them ran at the Kusa ninja, the mysterious attacker was inwardly impressed at the young man's ability to already use shadow clones. But unfortunately for Naruto the shadow clones were not enough, the Kusa ninja quickly disposed of them without even breaking a sweat. Naruto jumped back to his two teammates, he was shocked to see his shadow clones all effortlessly taken care of. Sakura saw the Kusa ninja approaching them, she began to form a genjutsu to keep him distracted. The Kusa ninja scoffed at the weak attempt, he simply brushed the genjutsu off. Sasuke grit his teeth in frustration, he summoned another fireball at the attacker, but one again it was to no effect, he simply dodged the attack. Gukikuku, you brats are impressive for ninjas your age, but you still aren't a match for me. Don't worry, I'll make sure your deaths are quick, he declared. Fuchius no Jutsu. The three genin stared in awe as large puff of smoke appeared, within the smoke an even larger creature sprung forth. The ground around them trembled as a gigantic snake slithered closer to the three genin. Before any of them could dodge, the snake used its tail to swipe at the genin. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura were sent flying into different directions, each crashing into a tree. They barely had the strength to move, their bodies screamed out in pain from the impact. Fukuku, thanks for your help, Manda, feel free to eat the other brats, I'll take care of Sasuke-kun, he said before jumping off the snake's head. Using his sensory abilities, the Kusa ninja found Sasuke's chakra signature. He slowly walked over to the Uchiha and he was surprised to see him standing, albeit gingerly. Hello again, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke grabbed the kunai in his holster, what do you want with me, you freak? Come here to kill me? Or are you here for the scroll? None of the above, Sasuke-kun, I just came here to offer you a parting gift of sorts, he said. Before Sasuke could reply, the Kusa ninja ran at him. In desperation, Sasuke summoned his Sharingan once more. He threw a few shuriken at his opponent, along with a kunai. The Kusa ninja effortlessly caught kunai projectiles with his teeth while dodging the large shuriken, but in the last second, his eyes widened as he noticed the wires attached to them. He turned back to Sasuke only to see the Uchiha grinning madly, time to die, he yelled. Heian. Rika no Jutsu. Fire made its way to the ninja wires. Through the wires, the attack connected as it burned the Kusa ninja's face. Sasuke smirked victoriously as he watched the man burn. But then Sasuke began to hear another sadistic laugh. Impossible, how is he still alive after that? He thought to himself. The fire died down, leaving the Kusa ninja's face burnt, but what surprised Sasuke was how it looked as if his skin was peeling off instead. Underneath the burnt face seemed to be yet another face, but this time it was unharmed by the flames. To be able to use the Sharingan so well at this age, I'm impressed, Sasuke-kun. I really do want you, Sasuke-kun. You passed my test and I can sense the power in your eyes. The power that could surpass even Itachi's. How the hell do you know that name? Who the hell are you? Answer me, Sasuke yelled. The Kusa ninja's expression turned serious as ripped away the skin from his burnt face. My name is Orochimaru, and if you want the power to defeat Itachi, then seek me out. Before then I will leave you with a parting gift, he said. Orochimaru's neck extended abnormally. He reached the side of Sasuke's neck and bit it. A seal began to form around this area. Sasuke fell down onto his knees as he screamed in pain. He clutched a bitten area in pain, but soon unconsciousness took over. Orochimaru walked back over to Sasuke's unconscious body. He grabbed the scroll in his pocket and placed it in the boy's jacket. If you survive this, Sasuke-kun, then proceed to the next round. I look forward to see how you fare against the best this competition has to offer, he said before vanishing in search of the other two genin. Orochimaru arrived back to stand on top of Manda's head. Apparently the snake was yet to locate his prey. Orochimaru helped the snake by using his sensory power to locate the other two. Once he pinpointed their locations, he sent the snake to eat Naruto. Orochimaru, on the other hand, was simply going to kill Sakura himself. Naruto clutched his torso in pain. He heard and felt the snake approach his direction, and he barely had the strength to move. Earlier on, Naruto heard Sasuke scream. He feared the worst for his friend, but he feared more for Sakura. Naruto was leaning on a tree branch, and somewhere just below him was Sakura. He wanted to run to her or to call out to her, but he couldn't find the strength to do so. His body couldn't take any more punishment. His eyes soon widened in fear. He finally saw the Kusa ninja arrive with his snake. This time, though, the Kusa ninja seemed to have a different appearance. Naruto still knew it was the same person. He wore the same outfit and he had the same chakra signature. Naruto watched on as the Kusa ninja jumped off the snake's head. His fear began to rise as he watched him approach the injured Pinket. She was in the same situation as him. She was awake, but she just couldn't find it in herself to move. Naruto grit his teeth as he attempted to stand. Unfortunately for him, it was to no effect. He watched closer as the Kusa ninja walked over to Sakura with his sword in hand. It didn't take a genius to know what he planned on doing. If Naruto didn't act now, then Sakura was going to die. Hell, even he was on the verge of death as the gigantic snake also leaned closer to eat him. Then time stopped for Naruto as everything began to happen in slow motion. While in this state, he heard a familiar voice speak to him. Hey Brad, I could lend you some of my power if you want it, said. Naruto shook his head. Shut up, you stupid fox. I don't need your power. Especially after what happened in the land of waves, he replied. Come on Brad, think about what you're saying. Right now you're on the verge of death, and so are those teammates of yours. If you don't act now, then they will die. Naruto bit his bottom lip. The Kyuubi had a point there. He was desperate to save his friends, but he also knew of the dangers of using the fox's chakra. Make up your mind, Brad, the girl's getting closer and closer to death. The longer you take, then you risk putting your teammates' lives in danger. He turned his head to Sakura. He could the Kusa ninja in front of her with his sword at hand. What do I do? What the hell do I do? I'm stuck in a rock and a hard place, he thought to himself. Naruto was once again broken from his thoughts as he heard the Kyuubi's booming voice. Brat, make your decision now. What is it going to be? Naruto sighed in defeat. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Do it, Kyuubi, he yelled back. The fox chuckled darkly. Good answer, Brad, it said before injecting Naruto with his power. Red chakra began to form around Naruto's body. It began to take the shape of a fox. The red chakra began to heal Naruto's wounds. The young blonde then found the strength once more to stand. The snake lunged to eat its prey, but before it reached Naruto, the young genin disappeared. He ran as fast as he can and he appeared within a few seconds in front of Orochimaru. He cocked back his fist and struck the Sannin in the body, sending him flying through the trees. He arrived just in time to save Sakura from her death. The pink-haired Kunoichi could only stare in shock and disbelief. Naruto, is that really you? She asked. Naruto gave no answer. Instead, he rushed to attack the gigantic snake. Once again, he cocked his fist back to prepare his attack. He jumped high up into the air to face the snake. Once in this position, he punched the summoned creature. Manda fell to the ground before disappearing with a plume of smoke. Orochimaru soon arrived back in the area in shock as he watched Naruto effortlessly dispose of Manda. The gears in his head began to turn as he examined Naruto. What an intriguing turn of events. It seems as though the Kyuubi Jinchuriki lives. I would have never expected for you to be that Jinchuriki, Naruto-kun, he said. Naruto sensed Orochimaru's return, he turned back to face his opponent. This time he went down on all fours. He ran at Orochimaru completely blinded by his rage, his only goal right now was to kill the Sannin, and nothing more. After what he did to his team, Orochimaru deserved nothing less. Naruto made sure to take the battle to an area where Sakura wouldn't be affected, his goal was protect his teammates, and obviously he didn't want Sakura to get hurt. In his one-tailed state, Naruto managed to challenge Orochimaru, but unfortunately for him it was not enough. He was still lacking power if he wanted to defeat Orochimaru. Soon, in act of further desperation, he added another tail. Orochimaru continued to hold Naruto off at bay, but he knew that if Naruto continued then things could get complicated. After a few more minutes it was clear to Naruto that he still wasn't strong enough to kill the Sannin. He knew he needed more power, and so 2 more tails sprouted from his chakra cloak. Naruto was finally in his 4-tailed state. The power radiating from Naruto seemed to engulf the village, everyone could feel this familiar power rising. It was a power Konoha hasn't felt in around 12 years. Somewhere in the forest of death. A sickly smile made its way to the red-haired Chunin ninja, he felt the power emerging from the forest, and it only served to get him excited. An uncharacteristic laugh began to emerge from the young man. It seems I'm not the only one here, he thought to himself. After his bloodthirsty chortling, he turned back to stare at his 2 frightened siblings. Temari, Kankuro, let's go. I want to make it to the next round already, he ordered. The 2 other Chunin ninjas nodded their heads as they followed their little brother, neither noticed the bloodthirsty smile on their brother's face. Mother is excited and so am I, I've yet to kill a fellow Jinchuriki before. Hokage's office. Here is in Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage of Konoha stood behind his desk, in front of him was a collection of his most trusted Anbu officers, Jonin and Takubetsu Jonin. Attention everybody, I'm sure you all felt that power, I want you all to prepare and meet me by the entrance of the Forest of Death. We will investigate this power, and we will put a stop to this before it comes to harm the village. Hi Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded and dismissed the ninjas, he too prepared for what was to come. As he prepared his battle attire, worry and doubt began to creep up, he prayed to Kami that Naruto was alright. He wondered what in the world could have led to Naruto unleashing the Kyuubi's powers. Please Naruto, be safe. But Naruto. Unfortunately for Naruto, he still couldn't defeat Orochimaru. The Sannin simply had too much experience in battle and too much power that he managed to neutralize most of Naruto's attacks. Naruto was yet to face an opponent this powerful, he thought defeating him was simple if he used the Kyuubi's powers, but apparently it wasn't as simple as he initially thought. The 2 left a trail of destruction as their battle continued, Sakura simply watched from her old position in fear. She couldn't believe how much power Naruto had, and she couldn't believe how Orochimaru was yet to be defeated. Sakura continued to watch the 2 fight, and the longer it went, the more it seemed to be like a battle between gods. Sakura was too focused on the battle to notice the tears falling down her face, she couldn't take watching Naruto act like this. This was not like the Naruto she knew, this was not the kind or caring knucklehead of Team 7. Seeing Naruto in such a state just made her tick, Sakura began to push her body and force herself to stand up. It took a while, but in her current state of desperation, she managed to ignore the pain. Sakura then began to walk closer to Naruto, at the moment he was staring down Orochimaru. He didn't even sense Sakura approaching. Naruto, that's enough, you don't have to do this anymore please, she yelled as she walked closer to her teammate. Naruto turned his head as he saw Sakura approaching, in this current form he couldn't tell if she was an ally or a foe. Instead he roared into the sky as he used one of his tails as a whip, Sakura was hit by Naruto's tail, and once again she was sent flying back to her spot. The burning sensation began to inflict itself at her arm, but at the moment she could no longer feel the pain as she was knocked unconscious by Naruto's tail. Naruto turned back to Orochimaru, not even sparing a glance back at Sakura. The battle between the 2 raged on, Naruto did his best to dispose of Orochimaru, but even in this state he couldn't defeat him. This time however he was inflicting damage on the Snake Sannin, the only problem was that the damage wasn't vital, he still couldn't defeat Orochimaru, no matter how hard he tried. Before Naruto could continue on with this battle, time once again seemed to have slowed down for him. Naruto blinked wondering what was going on, after a few seconds the environment surrounding him began to change, the forest was turning into some strange-looking sewer. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto stood back in front of a massive cage, the environment around him no longer consisted of trees, and instead he seemed to be in some strange sewer, rather than a dense forest. Naruto knew from past experiences that he was in his own mindscape. Earlier on when the fox lent him his power, he only spoke to him telepathically. Now apparently the fox wanted to speak to him in person. What do you want, fox? I'm on the verge of finally beating this guy. Silence, you fool, I called you here for a reason, the fox yelled out. Naruto was unaffected by the fox's outburst. Well, what is it? I can't afford to waste my time, especially in a situation like this, he replied. You don't have to worry, Brad, we're in your mindscape. You haven't been fighting the freak for a while now, your animal instincts took over a long time ago. Unfortunately for you though, it is still not enough. I have given you 4 taels worth of my power, and at the moment it is still not enough to defeat your opponent. Why don't you just give me more then? I would if I can, but your body cannot take any more chakra or it will die. When that happens, then both of us die and there will be nobody left to protect your friends. They'll be as good as dead if that happens. Iwubi inwardly smiled as he saw Naruto getting worried. Naruto's dedication to his friends could be the fox's way out of the cage. All he needed to do was smooth talk his way out of this, he needed to push Naruto to the edge. In truth, he could easily add more tails for Naruto, at the moment he believed that 4 was the perfect number for now. It wasn't strong enough to defeat Orochimaru, and it wasn't weak enough to lose to Orochimaru, it was the perfect level of power to trick Naruto. What are you saying then, Fox? What can I do to help my friends? I can't have them die on me. The Kyuubi raised a paw to silence Naruto. Calm down, Brad, and listen. Do you see the seal on my gate, he said. Naruto examined the gate and saw the seal placed on the keyhole. He glared at the Kyuubi after locating the seal. Yeah, and what about it? He asked suspiciously. If you want to save your friends, then you'll have to remove it. This will allow me to give you the power to save your friends. At the moment this is the only thing stopping me from giving you more tails. You'll need to remove it if you want to defeat the snake freak. What's the catch? There is no catch, Brad. If you want to protect your friends, then you'll have to remove it, that's all there is to it. If you don't remove it, then I can't guarantee a victory for you, and if that happens, then you can say goodbye to Pinky and Duckbutt. So what do you say? How do I know you're not just tricking me or something? The large fox simply shrugged. I don't know either, kid. I guess you'll just have to trust your instincts, he said nonchalantly. Naruto began to quickly think about both pros and cons in this deal. He couldn't tell whether the fox was being honest with him or not. But despite his hesitations and reluctance to agree to the fox's deal, he was extremely worried about his fight against Orochimaru. He didn't know what to do in this situation, he couldn't bear the thought of seeing Sasuke and Sakura die. They were his teammates and deep down inside he considered his team like a family, in fact it was the closest thing he's ever had to a family. Just the mental image of seeing his 2 teammates and friends deceased made his blood boil. With renewed dedication he decided to risk it all. If it backfired on him, then so be it. At this moment the only thought on his mind was the safety of both Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto didn't even care about his own safety at this point. If I do this, can you promise me something, Fox? Depends on what it is. Please kill the Kusa ninja, and please just keep my 2 teammates safe. The Kyuubi was beginning to feel excited, his plan was coming to fruition, and everything was working. He was close to freedom. At this moment he decided to entertain his jailer for a bit. Yeah, sure, whatever you say. Naruto nodded and thanked the fox. He began to walk closer to the gate until he reached its front. He failed to notice the devious grin forming on the fox's face, instead he focused on the task at hand. When he reached the front of the gate, a pillar of water began to rise. It elevated Naruto to face the seal. Naruto breathed in and out to calm his nerves. He slowly reached out to grab the corner of the seal. Slowly he began to tear the seal. The Kyuubi's eyes widened in anticipation as he watched the seal weakening. My return is close at hand, just a little bit more, Brad, then I will be free. I will destroy this pathetic village, he thought to himself. The seal was halfway removed, but before Naruto could fully tear it down, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He was broken from his reverie, and soon the pillar of water broke down. Naruto fell onto the floor nursing his head. He wondered what had just happened. The Kyuubi's expression turned from excitement into anger as he watched the event unfold before his very eyes. No, not you again. I was so close to finally being free from this shithole, but you had to come and ruin my plans, he yelled in anger. Naruto laid on the ground still in shock. He then blinked repeatedly as he saw a hand appear right in front of him, and it offered to help him stand up. He decided to grab onto the hand, and he was brought back up to his feet. Naruto's eyes widened as he was brought face to face with a mysterious figure. The man had spiky blonde hair and bright blue eyes that went along with his standard Konoha Jonin uniform on. But what caught Naruto's eye was his long white haori. It reached down to his knees, and the hem was designed with red flames. There was no mistaking it in Naruto's eyes. He was standing in front of his childhood hero, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto spent enough time sitting and gazing at the Hokage's monument to know the faces of each Hokage, and the man in front of him perfectly resembled the Yondaime's face. Naruto gulped nervously as he faced the man. Everything about him matched the Yondaime Hokage, but even then he still had to know if it really was him. He needed to know if he was just in one strange dream or was this reality. Who are you? He asked. The Yondaime remained silent for a few seconds, instead he simply smiled proudly at Naruto. The young blonde was surprised by this gesture, he didn't know what it was, but he felt warm inside as the man smiled at him. The yondaime Hokage then kneeled down to reach Naruto's eye level. "I'm the yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. But more importantly, I'm your father, Naruto." Chapter 2. Father and Son. For the first time in a long time, Naruto was speechless. He couldn't utter a single response, his emotions were all muddled up. He continued to stare at the yondaime Hokage, and with just one look at the man Naruto could tell that he was speaking the truth. The similarities in their appearance was uncanny, for Naruto it truly felt as if he was staring at his future self, from the spiky blonde hair to the bright blue eyes, there was simply no use in denying it. In fact, the only discernible difference between the two was Naruto's whiskers, and that was something he could attribute to the fox. "Are you really my father?" he asked in a hushed tone. Minato leaned closer to Naruto and engulfed the young boy in a tight hug. "Yes, I am Naruto, I'm your dad," he replied. Tears began to well up in Naruto's eyes, the young genin also hugged his father in return. The two stayed in that position for a few moments, everything was just too overwhelming for Naruto. "Dad, why did you do it?" Naruto asked as tears continued to cascade down his whiskered cheeks. Minato sighed heavily, despite the vagueness of the question he knew exactly what he meant. "It's because I had no other choice, son. I wish things could have gone differently, but at that moment in time I had no other choice. I couldn't ask another parent to sacrifice their child, and as much as it pained me to do it, I had to seal the fox within you," he replied. Naruto's jaws clenched in anger, he pushed his father away from the hug and instead he glared at the older blonde. "Why did it have to be me? Do you know how I had to suffer because of that decision? My life has been a living hell because of that bastard fox, what were you honestly thinking?" he yelled in frustration. Minato winced at his son's outburst, he felt even worse as he stared into his red puffy eyes. But before he could reply, the two were interrupted by a loud and booming voice. "Enough of this, yondaime, you will pay for what you did. I swear to Kami, when I get out of this place I will finish what I started 12 years ago, and this time there is nothing that could stop me." Minato rolled his eyes before facing back at the cage which held the Kyuubi. "Listen here Kyuubi, you just interrupted a heart-to-heart talk between my son and me," he said in return. "Yeah, and what are you going to do about it?" The yondaime chose to ignore the fox's taunt. He instead faced his son. "He never shuts up, how about we go somewhere else," he suggested before snapping his fingers. The whole area around them began to change, no longer were they near the Kyuubi's cage, now rather than being in a dark and gloomy sewer, they were instead in a large wide empty space. Naruto was shocked by this sudden change, he looked around and examined the area, and there was no sign of the Kyuubi, the place didn't even have any boundaries. It seemed to be an endless plain of nothing. "Now we can finally talk in peace," Minato said. Naruto nodded in agreement, he silently stared at his father waiting for the answer to his question. Minato slumped down knowing there was no point in avoiding this question, he just decided to get it over and done with. Though he prayed to Kami that his son would understand why he chose to do it. "Naruto, I sealed the Kyuubi inside of you because I knew you would one day learn to control it, you are my son after all, and there was another reason why I did it. During the fox's attack I learned something important. There was someone hiding in the shadows and he was controlling the Kyuubi." Naruto's eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" he stuttered out in fear. "The man I faced was a shinobi of unfathomable power, even I had a hard time facing him. He had a mysterious and unique set of skills which were able to neutralize some of my jutsu, and I'm sure he plans to strike again." "Who is this person?" asked Naruto. "His name was Madara Uchiha, he disguises himself with an orange mask. He may seem harmless at first, but trust me, he might just be the most dangerous ninja in the world right now." "That's impossible, Sasuke is the last Uchiha other than his brother, and isn't that Madara guy supposed to be dead?" Naruto yelled in response. Naruto may not have been the brightest or most attentive student in the academy, but certain topics interested him from time to time, one of which was the exploits of past Hokages. During his history lessons his class was being taught about the days and lives of the Shodai, Nidaime, Sandaime and Yondaime Hokage, and of course with Naruto wanting nothing more but to be a future Hokage, he drew an interest into this specific topic. Obviously when it came to the Shodai's history lesson, Madara had to be mentioned on numerous occasions. Minato simply shook his head. "I do wish that was the case, but unfortunately Madara does live, and unfortunately he will be coming for you Naruto mostly because of the Kyuubi," he said. Naruto continued to glare at his father. "Damn it, stop lumping all this crap on me, and how the hell am I supposed to deal with that guy if you couldn't even defeat him? He was strong enough to control the fox, how could I defeat a man like that?" he angrily replied. The yondaime simply chuckled as he placed his hand on Naruto's head. "Don't worry Naruto, the solution is simple. All you have to do is surpass me," he said with a soft smile on his face. Naruto ceased his rant as he stared into his father's eyes in disbelief. "Surpass you? Are you serious?" he mumbled. Minato nodded his head, yes Naruto, you will need to surpass me, and I know you can do it he said. The young genin was left dumbfounded by that statement, the task in itself seemed impossible to achieve, but in the way the yondaime said it, Naruto couldn't help but feel confident in his chances. He could hear the belief in his voice. For as long as Naruto could remember, he always aspired to be like his hero the yondaime, and he even dreamed of one day surpassing the man. Naruto was beginning to feel overburdened with a plethora of different thoughts. In this state of mental meditation, everything just came crashing down for Naruto, the realization just set in for him. He was the yondaime Hokage's son, he was being hunted by Madara Uchiha because of the Kyuubi, and he was given the responsibility of stopping Madara, but to do that he also had to surpass the yondaime Hokage. All these responsibilities and revelations were too much for a young kid such as Naruto, he wasn't mentally or emotionally prepared for this encounter. Naruto's life may have been somewhat complicated before, but now with all this added on, his life was now even more complex. Simple was not a word in Naruto's dictionary, everything about him just had to scream extravagant. Minato watched his son go into deep thought, it had been a minute of silence. Minato began to feel a bit worried, did I break him? He inwardly asked himself. The silence continued for another minute, Minato decided to just intervene and speak up to break Naruto's state of rumination. So how are you feeling Naruto? Naruto was broken from his reverie as he heard his father speak up once more, come again? He asked. Minato chuckled while sheepishly rubbing the back of his head, sorry about that, I just saw you concentrating so hard that I kind of got a bit worried. I asked about how you feel about all this. He replied. I feel overwhelmed about everything to be honest, in fact I actually have no idea what to feel right now answered Naruto. What do you mean by that? I'm just feeling all sorts of emotions at the moment, I'm scared at the thought of having to fight that Madara guy, I'm angry because you guys sealed the Kyuubi in me, but at the same time I'm happy to finally know who my father was. For such a long time I always thought that I was abandoned or if my parents hated me, I used to cry myself to sleep after seeing all my other classmates with their own parents, I was so jealous of them. Minato frowned at his son's confession, Naruto don't ever question your parents' love for you, your mother and I loved you with all our heart and we would have never abandoned you. As for Madara, don't worry about that. The time for that will come later on, for now focus on improving yourself and getting stronger, there will be a lot of people who will help you along the way. And like I said, you will surpass me one day Naruto, all you have to do is work hard and persevere, and the rest will come in time he replied in a fatherly tone. Naruto's bottom lip began to quiver as he tried to resist the tears threatening to spill, thanks dad those words really mean a lot to me. But if you don't mind me asking, who was my mother? He asked in a somber tone. A fond and loving smile made its way to Minato's face as he thought about the fiery and temperamental Redeed who stole his heart, your mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki. I guess you could say that in terms of personality, you probably took after your mother. From what I know you're a bit of a prankster and a troublemaker, and your mom was exactly the same he answered in a jovial tone. The young genin was surprised to hear that, he never expected his mother to be a prankster either, so what was she like? He continued to ask. Well your mother was unpredictable, hot-tempered, erratic, volatile and capricious, but at the same time she was also one of the most loving and caring people I've known. In fact before you became the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, your mother was actually the previous container. Really? I guess that makes sense, it really does explain a lot Naruto muttered in response. Yeah I guess you could say that Minato replied before grunting and falling down to one knee. Naruto was shocked by this, he rushed to his father, Dad what's wrong? Are you alright? He asked. Minato sighed as he felt his chakra depleting, as much as he loved this time with his son he knew this couldn't last forever, Naruto I'm running out of chakra, I have to go soon, unfortunately he said in a dejected tone. Naruto's eyes widened in panic, what? Can't you stay any longer? I've just met you, I don't want you to leave so soon he said. I'm sorry Naruto, but our time is running up, I have a couple minutes left with you at most. Before I leave Naruto, I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry for what I did, and I'm sorry for everything that happened to you, before I died I wanted Konoha to see you as a hero, but apparently that wasn't the case. Could you ever find it in your heart to forgive me? Naruto gazed at his father, don't worry dad I forgive you, I guess I can't stay mad at you, you are my hero after all. I still can't believe that you're actually my dad, and I'm happy and proud to be your son he said in a sincere tone. Minato smiled warmly at his son, Naruto you have no idea how much that means to me, I couldn't ask for a better son. I only wish I could have been there to raise you. To this day that is my only regret. I just wish you didn't have to suffer like you did he replied. Don't worry dad it wasn't that bad, my life may not have been filled with butterflies and rainbows, but I still wouldn't change it for anything. Minato chuckled as he playfully ruffled his son's spiky blonde hair, before I go Naruto there is one last thing I must do. I need to redo the seal, though I must warn you son, this will be the last time I can do this. Naruto, lift your shirt he ordered. Naruto did as he was asked, the yondaime faced the young genin and the seal on his stomach. Minato then plunged his hand into the seal and twisted it, effectively repairing and fixing the weakened seal. Once the job was done, Minato stood back up to face Naruto, but this time with a stern expression. Naruto, remember that this will be the last time I will be able to do this. The next time the fox offers an arrangement like this, please just refuse it. No matter what, do not release the Kyuubi from the seal, he scolded. The young genin looked down in shame. I'm sorry dad, but I was just so desperate. I just wanted to protect my friends from that snake freak. I don't think I could have done it without having to use the Kyuubi's power, he said apologetically. I'm not saying don't use the Kyuubi's power, the seal I placed on you allows you to do that, and if in dire circumstances you should use it. All I'm saying is that don't go any further than that and beware of the consequences of your actions. I understand why you did what you did and I know that your intentions were good, but you have to realize the negative effects this power may have, just don't abuse this power Naruto. Naruto nodded his head in understanding, but before he could reply his father began to slowly fade away. Their time was close to finishing. Naruto was feeling saddened by the fact that after this, he would never see his father again. There was still so much he wanted to tell him. Minato saw his son's dejected face. Don't worry son, I may not have long left, but at least I can finally leave happy. Before I leave forever, please remember my advice Naruto, he said. I will dad, I promise that I will surpass you and will be the Hokage just like you. I promise to stop relying on the fox's power and I promise to earn my own strength to beat that Madara team's ass for what he did. I know you will Naruto, you are destined for greatness. Me and your mother will watch you from up above, we'll watch you grow into a great Hokage and an even greater man. We have complete faith in you Naruto. A large smile adorned Naruto's face. Dad, can you please do me one favor? He asked. Sure son, what is it? When you go and meet mom, please tell her that I love her as well. Minato smiled and nodded. Don't worry son, I'll make sure she gets the message, he said as a blinding light began to engulf the two. It looks like my time is up. Konoha is in your hands now Naruto. Make us proud son. Forest of Death. Orochimaru slowly walked closer and closer to the blonde boy's unconscious body. So far he had proven to be quite a challenge for him. The snake Sannin was actually quite impressed with the young blonde. If he hadn't already marked Sasuke, then he would also consider Naruto. The young boy showed immense promise, and it seemed to be a waste to simply kill him right then and there. But as Orochimaru neared the unconscious Jinchuriki, a squadron of Anbu operatives quickly jumped down onto the area, and leading that group of Anbu was none other than Anko Mitarashi herself, Orochimaru's former apprentice. Orochimaru, I've finally found you. Prepare to pay for what you did, she yelled in rage. Anko rushed towards the snake Sannin with the intent to kill. Orochimaru knew that he was outnumbered in this scenario, and he knew it was foolish to try and fight his way out. With no other alternative left, he decided it was best for him to flee for now. I'm sorry Anko-chan, but I'm not ready to die yet, he hissed before throwing 2 smoke bombs onto the floor. Anko and the rest of the Anbu unit was covered and blinded by the smoke, but once all the smoke cleared, they began to check and search the area for any signs of Orochimaru. Fuck, the bastard got away, cursed Anko. She had been waiting for Orochimaru to pop up again so that she could finally get her revenge, but unfortunately for her, she failed to capitalize at the most opportune moment. Anko-san, a voice called out, breaking Anko from her train of thought. She turned back to face an Anbu operative. We found 3 Konoha genin here, all of them severely injured. They are in dire need of medical attention. Anko nodded. Show them to me right away, she ordered. Hi, said the Anbu operative. Anko was soon led to a tree stump and there she found 3 unconscious genin being carried by Anbu officers. She walked closer and examined the 3, she recognized them as Kakashi's students. Anko-san, we also found a strange mark on Sasuke-san's neck, said another Anbu officer. The snake mistress's eyes widened in fear. Where is it? She asked frantically. The Anbu officer carrying Sasuke appeared in front of her and he showed her the strange mark on Sasuke's neck. Anko's complexion paled at the sight of the mark. Her fists clenched and she grinded her teeth in anger. So this is your game, you snake bastard. Inflicting this shit on me wasn't enough, you had to go and place it on the last Ichigo. You are one sick bastard Orochimaru, she thought to herself. She shook her head from these thoughts. At the moment the 3 genin had to be her main priority. She turned to face the Anbu operatives one more. Bring them all into the infirmary. Also call the Hokage and Kakashi Haddock. They'll want to see about this, she ordered in a no-nonsense tone. Anko-san, at the moment these 3 are participants in the Chunin exams. We aren't allowed to help them, an Anbu operative pointed out. Anko simply glared at that officer, causing him to gulp nervously. These 3 just went up against a Sannin and lived to tell the tale. The Chunin exams should be the last thing in their minds after that, she hissed. The Anbu operatives all decided not to argue further with the torture specialist, instead they followed her orders and carried the three genin into the hospital for treatment. Anko was now left all alone, her mind was still plagued with thoughts about Orochimaru's return. Damn you Orochimaru, I promise the next time you show yourself here you will not escape. Next time I will finish the job. Konoha Hospital. The Sandaime Hokage arrived in the hospital with Kakashi Haddock beside him, the two rushed here as soon as they heard the news from the Anbu officers. After speaking to the receptionist, the two quickly made their way to the room where the three genin were held. Upon entering the room they were greeted by the sight of three severely injured genin all laying on a hospital bed, around them were doctors, Anbu operatives and of course Anko. Hiruzen approached the snake mistress first. Anko, give me your report, he ordered in an authoritative tone. Anko nodded her head in accordance. Hokage-sama, I regret to inform you, but the one responsible for this attack was none other Orochimaru, she said, causing both Kakashi and Hiruzen to flinch. Hiruzen's eyes widened in shock. Are you sure about this, Anko? What is he doing here? He asked. I am certain, Hokage-sama, I saw the son of a bitch with my own two eyes. Orochimaru is here in Konoha, as for the reason, if I had to guess it would be for the Uchiha. I examined the wounds and injuries on the three genin, both Blondie and Pinky were injured, but they live. The Uchiha on the other hand, he was marked with a curse seal, the same one given to me by Orochimaru. Both Kakashi and the Hokage were shocked by this. Anko, show it to me now, Hiruzen said. Anko nodded her head and led the two toward Sasuke's hospital bed. The doctors decided not to stop them, seeing as how the Hokage himself wanted to see it with his own eyes. The snake mistress lightly pulled down the collar on Sasuke's hospital robes. Hiruzen and Kakashi were then given an excellent view of the curse seal inflicted on the young boy. Why must you walk down this dark path, Orochimaru? Whatever happened to that young boy I trained? Hiruzen thought to himself. Hokage-sama, I'm sure you also felt the Kyuubi's chakra earlier today. If I had to guess I would say that Naruto had no other choice but to turn to the fox's power if they really went up against Orochimaru, Kakashi pointed out. Hiruzen nodded in agreement. I think you may be right, Kakashi, I can't think of any other possible explanation for the Kyuubi's chakra, he muttered in reply. So what should we do now, Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked. The Sandaime sighed. I'll need to inform the council about this soon, but we should try to keep this information away from the public. I don't want to start a mass panic in Konoha, he answered. Anko, how about Naruto and Sakura? What are the extent of their injuries? Kakashi questioned. Blondie was found all bruised, bloodied, and his clothes were all tattered. Luckily for him though, his major injuries and wounds were healed quickly by the Kyuubi. At the moment the kid's fine, he's only suffering from chakra exhaustion. From the three of them he came out the least hurt, but he'll probably be a bit sore when he wakes up. And Sakura? As for Pinky, she was found with multiple wounds and bruises in her body. Thankfully once more no vital injuries, but there was a peculiar wound found on her right forearm. It was a severe chakra burn, and I think we all know where it came from. Kakashi grimaced underneath his mask. If Naruto learns about this he'll go into a depression. But I wonder, with the cat already out of the bag, how will Sasuke or Sakura react to Naruto? I hope they won't take after the village's short-sightednesses, he inwardly told himself. Anko then decided to press on to another important issue. Hokage-sama, there is another issue, it's about Team 7's validity to the next stage of the Chunin exams. Technically we aren't allowed to interfere in what happens in this stage of the exams. At the moment the rules say that these three should be disqualified, she explained. As much as she hated to question Team 7's validity at a time like this, it was part of her job as the proctor of the second exams. Anko, I think we could give them a pass this one time, because ordinarily you shouldn't have to face an S-rank missing ninja in your Chunin exams. Besides, the council are going to demand to have Sasuke placed in the next stage of the Chunin exams anyway. When they wake up we'll give them the choice whether they still want to continue or not. Very well, Hokage-sama, she said with a respectful salute to the Hokage. Knowing Naruto and Sasuke, there's no way in hell those two are sitting out from the next stage, said Kakashi. Anko, Kakashi, for now I'll also need the both of you to work on Sasuke's curse seal. I plan on messaging Jiraiya to return, but unfortunately it'll take him at least a week to journey back. I plan on having him inspect and study the seal, but at the moment while he's unavailable, you two need to try and suppress the seal as much as possible, Hiruzen ordered. The Jonin and Takebetsu Jonin both nodded their heads. Hi Hokage-sama, they said in unison. Without saying another word, Hiruzen simply disappeared, leaving a plume of smoke. He needed to return to work as soon as possible, everything for him just seemed to be going wrong. As if he wasn't stressed and busy enough with the Chunin exams being held in Konoha, now he also had to worry about Orochimaru's return to the village he betrayed. Hokage's office. The Sandaime reappeared in his office. The old Hokage slowly walked over to his desk and pulled out a large piece of paper. He quickly began to write a letter intended for Jiraiya. It was a brief letter which revolved around Naruto, Sasuke and Orochimaru. Then once he was finished writing his letter, he summoned one of his messenger apes to deliver the letter to Jiraiya. But the brief letter finished and sent, the old Hokage laid back at his seat with an audible groan. The old Hokage ran his wrinkled hand across his diminishing hair. Today was not a good day in the life of Hiruzen Sarutobi. Slowly, the Hokage stood up from his seat and he walked over to the large window in his office. It gave him a clear view on the Hokage monument. Hiruzen couldn't help but sigh as his gaze fell on the fourth face on the mountain. Minato, you should be sitting in this seat rather than me. You were so young and you had so much promise, sometimes I wonder how things might have been had you and Kushina lived. Would you have gone through the things I have gone through? Or would you have found a way around them? He thought to himself. But I think one thing is clear though, I'm getting too old for this shit. Chapter 3 Big Shoes to Fill. Naruto's blue eyes flickered open, the young blonde inspected the area surrounding him and soon he realized he was in a hospital room. The last thing Naruto remembered was meeting his father and when that happened he was certain that he was still at the Forest of Death. "Ah, I see you're finally awake," Naruto said, a familiar voice. Naruto's head quickly turned to the source of the voice, his vision was still slightly blurry, but after a while it began to clear up and there stood the Hokage with Kakashi Haddock by his side. "Kakashi-sensei, Gramps, what happened? Why am I here?" he asked frantically. "Don't you remember what happened?" Kakashi asked in reply. "I do remember everything, Orochimaru attacked us. What happened to Sakura-chan and the team? Are they safe?" he asked in a panic. "Don't worry Naruto, they're safe, they're both on the rooms beside yours," assured Kakashi. Naruto breathed out a sigh of relief. "So what happened to Orochimaru?" he asked. "Unfortunately Naruto, Orochimaru escaped. I sent an ambush squad to assist you three, but Orochimaru anticipated their arrival. He fled the scene before anything serious happened." "Okay then, so how is Sasuke and Sakura-chan?" "They're both doing well, Sasuke is still unconscious after the fight with Orochimaru, but Sakura is already awake. She's just recuperating in her room," Kakashi replied. "That's good, at least they're both alright." "Naruto, is it alright if we ask you a few questions about that day?" Hiruzen asked. Naruto nodded, "No problem," he replied. "Do you know why Orochimaru attacked you three?" "Yeah, he was there for Sasuke," he answered, "he wanted something from the team." Hiruzen nodded in understanding. "While you were at the Forest of Death, I felt the fox's chakra, I assume that the fox intervened in your battle against Orochimaru. So how did you suppress the Kyuubi's chakra? From what I felt you were probably in the higher stages of the transformation." Naruto smiled brightly at the two. "I met the Yondaime Hokage, he's the one who stopped me from becoming the Kyuubi," he replied. Both Kakashi and Hiruzen stared at Naruto with widened eyes. "You met Minato?" Hiruzen asked in disbelief, to which Naruto nodded. Kakashi chuckled softly as he ruffled Naruto's hair. "What did the Yondaime tell you, Naruto?" "Fathers usually have a lot of things to say to their sons," he exclaimed. "He told me that he had faith in me." Kakashi gave Naruto a thumbs up. Hiruzen smiled at the young blonde. "Minato, even in death he still manages to save Konoha," said the Hokage. "Naruto, I'm sorry you weren't told of this sooner. I wanted to tell you about your heritage, but the Namikaze name is a dangerous one. Minato's actions in the previous war earned him many enemies, and I didn't want to associate you with that name until you were ready. The plan was to tell you when you reached either 18 years of age or Jonin status." "Save Ijiji," Naruto replied in a serious tone. "What's done is done and I understand. At first I was hurt and angry, but my dad told me to understand your point of view, and I guess you were just looking out for me. So in a way I have to be the one thanking you." "Naruto, there is another question we need to ask you," interjected Kakashi. "Do you want to continue on with the Chunin exams? After your fight with Orochimaru we'd understand if you didn't." Naruto stared at the two in disbelief. "Did you actually just ask me that?" "Of course I'm continuing these exams, there is no way in hell I'm quitting now," he yelled. "I thought so. In that case Naruto, I suggest you rest up for now, the next stage is scheduled to begin in a couple of days, and you'll need to be at your best when that day comes," Kakashi suggested. Naruto gave his masked sensei a mock salute. "You got it, Kakashi-sensei," he exclaimed. "But before that, could I check up on Sakura-chan and the team? I need to see how they're both doing." A small frown appeared underneath Kakashi's mask. "I don't think that's wise, Naruto," he said in a hushed and cautious tone. Naruto raised a single eyebrow out of surprise. "Why not?" he asked. "I don't know how to say this, Naruto, but when Sakura was found, she had burn marks on her right arm's wrists. Burn marks that can only come from intense chakra." Naruto's eyes widened in realization. "The fox's chakra?" he mumbled to himself. "Exactly, Sakura's other injuries haven't been too severe, but she has specifically asked the hospital not to allow you into her room," Kakashi explained. The young blonde looked down in shame. "I heard her," he muttered softly, "she's scared of me." The masked Jonin frowned watching his student sulk. He placed a comforting hand on the young boy's shoulders. "Just give her some time, Naruto. She needs to recover from this in her own time. If you see her now, then you may just jeopardize things. Allow her to solve this problem herself," he advised with a sage-like wisdom. Hiruzen nodded in agreement. "He's right, Naruto, time heals all wounds, and just let her figure this one out herself. I'm confident that she'll forgive you eventually. You just need to prove everyone that you're not the fox, show them that you're Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, in a way this is a sign for you, stop relying on the Kyuubi's powers. It's time that you gained your own. If you could gain your own power, then things like this may be avoidable. It's time to take things seriously, Naruto, find your own strength," said Kakashi. The young genin nodded in understanding. His hands gripped the sheets of his bed. "I'm going to be stronger than ever before. I'm going to be stronger than my dad. I refuse to let the fox take over again. I refuse to hurt my friends again. This time I will protect them," he declared with an impassioned tone. 2 days later. All 20 of the remaining participants stood proudly on the arena for the preliminaries of the Chunin exams. There was supposed to be one other participant, but Kabuto Yakushi chose to forfeit due to the injuries he sustained in the previous test. Upon the stands of the arena stood the team's respective jonin. This included the likes of Kakashi, Kurenai, Might Guy, Asuma and Baki, but among them was another jonin sensei. He didn't say much, nor did he introduce himself. He was simply known as the jonin instructor of Team Dosu. Kakashi couldn't tell why, but he had a strange feeling about this jonin. He felt familiar for some reason. Back down on the arena, Naruto stood alongside his fellow participants. In front of them was a sickly-looking Takubetsu jonin explaining the rules of the stage. He went by the name of Heiichiko. The young blonde couldn't necessarily pay attention to him or his rules. He chose to instead study and examine the rest of the competition. There were familiar faces from the academy. There was Kiba, Hinata, Shino, Shikamaru, Choji and Ino. Among them, Naruto only really found Kiba and Shino as the possible challenges. Hinata seemed too meek for him. For some strange reason she always seemed to faint when she was around him. Then there were the 3 members of Team 10. Shikamaru seemed too lazy for his own good. Choji was too nice to fight. The young Akimichi couldn't hurt a fly. Then there was Ino. She was too preoccupied with looking good for Sasuke. Naruto was certain that she was probably an easy opponent to fight. But the rest of the participants were an anomaly for Naruto. He had seen Rock Lee fight Sasuke earlier on in the exams, but aside from that one fight, that was all he knew of him. Among all the contestants, the one that piqued Naruto's interest the most was the Reed with the gourd on his back. Throughout the explanations, the Suna ninja had been staring at Naruto. The young blonde chose to ignore it, but he couldn't help but feel a bit intimidated by his sinister glare. It was similar to a predator stalking his prey. Naruto directed his attention to the other participants in the room. Once he was done with the competition, he stared at his 2 teammates. Sasuke seemed distant to him, at least much more distant than usual. There was something about him that was different. Sasuke tended to be antisocial and detached, but not like this. Then there was Sakura. The Pinket stood just beside him, and from what he saw she was trembling in her boots. Naruto inwardly sighed. He couldn't blame her. The Kyuubi was a frightening and intimidating being, and she was attacked by it. Naruto only wished that he could have been stronger to prevent it, but as much as he wanted to approach her and apologize, he knew it was best for him to listen to Kakashi and the Hokage's advice. She needed time. Naruto was soon broken from his thoughts as he heard Hayate raise his voice. "Alright, then it's time to start the preliminary round. The first fight will be Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Akado," he yelled. Later that day. After 10 whole fights, the preliminary stages were concluded. There had been many notable battles among the genin, one of which being Rock Lee vs Gaara of the Sand, though this battle was notable in a negative way. Gaara ended as the victor, with Rock Lee as the loser, but the injury sustained by Lee threatened the young man's ninja future. It was unclear if he would ever be able to move again. Another notable battle was Niji's fight versus his cousin Hinata. Much like the previous battle, this too was notable in a negative way. The fight had Niji nearly kill his own cousin, much to Naruto's anger. The meek and shy Hinata was left bloodied and barely breathing after the beating she took from her cousin. Team 7 had their own unique battles as well. Sasuke had the honor of fighting first in the preliminaries, and he dispatched his opponent Yoroi Akado with ease. Naruto, on the other hand, had a much more difficult fight. The energetic blonde was paired up against his friend and rival back at the academy, Kiba Inuzuka. The 2 dead lasts of the academy fought long and hard, but in the end, Naruto ended up as the victor. Naruto only had his deceptiveness and creativity to thank for that victory. Then finally there was Sakura. The Pinket's opponent was none other than her former best friend and current rival Ino Yamanaka. Despite their obvious lack of skill and strength, the 2 of them still managed to put up quite a good and entertaining fight, which ended with a draw. The rest of the fights were relatively quick and standard, nothing too entertaining about them. Shikamaru was paired up with one of the Otogakure genin, Kintsuchi, and the lazy Nara won the battle thanks to his intelligence and tactical superiority. Another fight had Zaku Yubimi of Team Dosu up against Shino Aburam of Team Kurenai, the latter ended up as the winner of the fight. The final member of Team Dosu, which was Dosu himself, won his own fight against Choji Akimichi. Then finally there was the two remaining Sand siblings, both Kankuro and Temari won their individual battles with ease. Tenten didn't even pose as a threat to Temari, her wind techniques easily dispatched and countered the bun-haired girl's weapon-based techniques. Kankuro was also undeniably the winner of his own fight against Misumi Tsurugi. But the final participants remaining, all 10 of the winners stood on back at the center of the arena. Every one of them was standing tall and proud. The group consisted of Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Gaara, Temari, Kankuro, Shikamaru Nara, Shino Aburam, Niji Hyuga, and Dosu Kanuta. Pei-8 stood in front of the group, first of congratulations for passing this round, but now the real test begins. For the next month you will be given a break which you may use to train. The next stage of the Chunin exams will have you pitted up against each other in a tournament. I suggest you all prepare yourselves for the finals, there's no telling what will happen, he said. Pei-8 then walked over to each of the 10 genin, he handed them each one random piece of paper. On the paper I gave you is a number, this will determine the fights for the next stage. Now tell me who has numbers 1 and 2. Sasuke and Niji both raised their hands, Pei-8 glanced at the two and nodded, interesting, a battle between this year's Rookie of the Year against last year's Rookie of the Year. You two will have the first battle, he announced. Now how about 3 and 4? The next to raise their hands were Shikamaru Nara and Temari, Pei-8 nodded and jotted this down on his small notebook. What about 5 and 6? This time it was Kankuro and Shino's turn to raise their hands, the insect manipulator versus the puppet master, interesting indeed, Pei-8 muttered softly. Who has numbers 7 and 8? Naruto's eyes widened as he heard his number called, the young blonde raised his hand, and the only other person to raise their hand was Gaara, the same Ritiid staring at him earlier that day, the same person who practically crippled Rock Lee. Naruto gulped nervously as he saw the bloodthirsty grin on his opponent's face. Oh, Kami, from everyone I get paired with it, had to be that guy, he thought to himself. That leaves number 9, because there can only be 2 people fighting at once, you will allowed a free pass onto the round, after Pei-8 said as Dosu grinned triumphantly and nodded. Now with the fights for the finals finally chosen, I will give you all the rules for the next stage. It won't vary much from this one, but it will be a much more different experience altogether, and I speak from experience, said the sickly Jonin. Hokage's booth. Hiruzen Sarutobi watched Pei-8 lecture the genin about the rules, he stayed at his own personal booth to watch the battles, and he was both impressed and appalled by what he saw. This year's Chunin exams has had its fair share of ups and downs so far, but the Hokage was disappointed at how some of the genin acted, Niji and Gaara in particular. To be honest, the Hokage was slightly worried for Naruto after seeing Gaara's battle against Rock Lee. Hiruzen remained confident in Naruto's skills, but that did nothing to ease his worries, the way Gaara simply destroyed his opponent made the Hokage nervous. He knew just how much being a ninja meant to Naruto, and if he sustained the same injuries and damage as Rock Lee did just then maybe a ninja's life may no longer be possible for Naruto. The Hokage was soon broken from his thoughts as he heard a small voice call out to him. Hokage-sama, I bring you a letter, it said. Hiruzen blinked repeatedly and searched the booth for the source of the voice. Down here, it said. The old Hokage turned to the floor and there he found a messenger toad with a letter at hand. Hiruzen's eyes widened slightly. A toad, this must mean Jiraiya has information for me, he thought to himself. The toad jumped up to the Hokage's lap, he handed him the letter and saluted respectfully before disappearing with a plume of smoke. Hiruzen grabbed the letter and read its contents. The message itself was short, simple and to the point. Jiraiya was seeking an audience with the Hokage at his office later that day. Apparently he held vital information for Konoha, and apparently Naruto and Sasuke were both involved in at least one of the dilemmas. Once the Hokage finished reading through the brief letter, he used a simple Kaiten jutsu to burn it. He turned his attention back to the genin standing in the arena. It seems they were all heading back to their respective jonin instructors. Hiruzen examined the area in search of Kakashi, it was probably best if he was included in the meeting with Jiraiya, after all his 2 students had something to do with the news. With Kakashi. The masked jonin stood proudly in front of his 2 students, you 2 did well, and I'm proud of you too. Sakura as well, but unfortunately she's recovering in one of the infirmaries, he said. Naruto raised his hand for a question, Sensei, are you going to train us for the month-long break? He asked. Kakashi nodded, yes and no, I can only train one of you for the break, he said, but before he could continue the Hokage appeared by his side. Hey Jiji, Naruto said enthusiastically. Hiruzen smiled softly at the young boy before turning back to Kakashi, you need to come with me, we have a meeting to attend, he said. Kakashi raised his lone visible eyebrow, a meeting? He asked. The Hokage nodded his head, yes it is of the utmost importance, I'll see you there soon he replied before vanishing once more. Naruto turned to his rival, Sasuke what was that about? He asked, the young Uchiha shrugged his shoulders as a response. The masked Jonin turned back to his two students, it looks like I'm needed elsewhere for now, just meet me at the usual training ground tomorrow at noon, and then we'll discuss your training for the month he said. The two genin nodded in understanding as they watched Kakashi also vanish, leaving a plume of smoke from where he stood. Hokage's office. As soon as Kakashi arrived in the office, the masked Jonin noticed the two chakra signatures in the room. One clearly belonged to the Hokage, but the other had a familiar signature. Kakashi turned to the source, and he was surprised to see the Toad-san and himself, Jiraiya. Jiraiya-sama, it is good to see you Kakashi greeted politely. The Toad-san nodded, it's good to see you Kakashi, you've grown since I last saw you he said. Jiraiya, please tell us about your findings ordered the Hokage. The Toad-san nodded as his expression quickly turned serious, unfortunately I come here bearing bad news. Konoha is in danger he said in a solemn tone. Hiruzen had a questioning stare directed at his student, in danger. What do you mean by that? The Hokage asked frantically. There are three forces working against Konoha at the moment, one is the Akatsuki. They plan on mobilizing in 3 years, and they plan on coming for Naruto soon he answered. Hiruzen clenched his jaw in frustration, they will be going after the fox soon. Damn it Naruto must be prepared for when the time comes he thought to himself. Kakashi clenched his fists, they're after my student. Over my dead body he inwardly told himself. What else can you tell me Jiraiya? The Akatsuki may be a threat in later years, but the moment we have a threat right now, I was given reports about Orochimaru. Apparently he has been spotted near Sunagakure. Suna you say? Asked Hiruzen. The Toad-san nodded, hi sensei Orochimaru is involved with Sunagakure that much I am certain, be wary of them he warned, my spies also informed me that Orochimaru is also planning something against Konoha, he may attack sooner or later. Jiraiya-sama, Orochimaru attacked during the second stage of the Chunin exams. He attacked my team and he inflicted Sasuke with his curse seal said Kakashi. Jiraiya sighed in frustration, it is what I feared, according to my spies Orochimaru is in search of a new body, and knowing his obsession for the Sharingan, it wouldn't surprise me if he did choose Sasuke he said. This is troublesome. We need to prepare immediately for this attack. We must take precautions Kakashi pointed out. I agree Kakashi, I'll assemble the other Jonin of Konoha and begin to set up Konoha's defenses, replied the Hokage. Jiraiya, is there anything else you need to add? Jiraiya reluctantly nodded, unfortunately there is one final thing, and quite frankly the other two may pale in comparison to this he said. Hiruzen and Kakashi stared at the Toad-san awaiting the information. Well what is it Jiraiya? Spit it out scolded the Hokage. The Toad-san sighed in defeat, I traveled across the 5 nations, and I learned a few things here and there, from what I've learned Iwagakure, Kumagakure and Kurigakure formed an alliance, and they are preparing for war he declared. Why would they prepare for war? We are at a time of peace Hiruzen stated. Their goal is apparently to exact revenge on Konoha, the wounds from the past war have yet to heal for those nations. The events of the Third Shinobi World War are still fresh in their minds, and honestly it doesn't surprise me one bit. Inoki and A seems like the type of people to hold grudges. Hiruzen's eyes widen in shock, you're not lying are you? This may really happen? He asked in a hushed and disbelieving tone. Jiraiya shook his head, I wish I was sensei, but at this point a war is inevitable, and as much as I hate to admit it, I'm not that confident in our chances. Since the last war most of our great ninjas have either passed away, retired, grown frail and old, some even went rogue, and others sustained heavy injuries affecting their ninja careers. We lack the S-rank ninjas who could put us over the top, we don't have a Minato anymore, and we don't have a Tsunade, or an Orochimaru, or a Tsukumo. Most of them are gone he replied. Hiruzen adopted a thinking pose, Jiraiya was right that they lack the same class and power of previous ninja generations. They didn't have the same generational talents they did in generations past. The only way they were surviving this war was to bank on to the next generation's abilities, they were the only ones who could possibly save them now. If they could reach their full potential, then Konoha may just return to their former glory, they may just find it in themselves to win. Jiraiya, what if we create a new generation of world-class ninjas? The potential is there, the only thing we need to do is nurture that potential. If we could do that then we may just have the power necessary to combat our opponents. The Toad-san stared at his sensei in disbelief, Sensei we do not have the luxury of time, we cannot just wait for this young generation to come and save us. What we need is instant gratification he swiftly replied. Jiraiya as you said a while ago we do not have the same military power as we did, it may have been 15 years from the war, but we are all still recovering from it. Do you know how many years we have before the 3 of them begin their attack? Yeah probably around 3 to 5 years. Then that is more than enough time to train and nurture the youth, we will need them to step up if we are to win this war. Jiraiya-sama, I agree with the Hokage. I believe in Konoha's future generation, my team has potential to become great, Kakashi interjected. Jiraiya, you haven't been back here in Konoha for years. While you were away I've seen this future generation grow before my eyes, genin such as Naruto and Sasuke have shown promise. They could be the ones to win this war for us. Minato almost single-handedly won us the last war, unfortunately Minato is no longer with us today, but we do have the next best thing. We have Naruto, his own flesh and blood. If anyone had the potential to reach Minato's heights or even surpass Minato, then it's Naruto, Hiruzen passionately declared. Sensei, are you sure about this? Could they really win us this war? Minato was my greatest student. There was nothing he couldn't do. I know Jiraiya. I know he was my successor after all. If anyone could replicate Minato's success it's Naruto, if you train him to reach his full potential, then the limits are endless. Naruto could be this generation's Minato, he could be the one who would win this war for us, Hiruzen said. That's why I want the two of you to personally train Naruto, start training him for the month and gauge his potential yourselves. I believe in him and Minato believes in him. Jiraiya and Kakashi both nodded. Alright then sensei, I'll check the kid out myself. What do you want me to teach him? Asked Jiraiya. Hiruzen shrugged both his shoulders, you two decide, you were Minato's teacher after all, Jiraiya. As for you Kakashi, you were Minato's prized student, if any two people were to teach Minato's own son, then it would have to be you two, he replied. Oh, and just as a heads up Jiraiya, Naruto is already aware of the fox and of his heritage, Hiruzen added on. Jiraiya's eyes widened in shock, he expected him to learn about the fox quite early on, but he didn't think he would learn about his heritage so quickly, how does he know? I'm pretty sure he's not a jonin yet and I'm certain he's still 12. Jiraiya-sama, do you remember about Orochimaru's attack on the Forest of Death? Kakashi asked as the Toad-san nodded his head. Well, during that fight, the Kyuubi was beginning to control Naruto, but before Naruto reached all 9 tails, Naruto tells us that Minato-sensei appeared in his subconscious and stopped the Kyuubi. The Toad-san placed a hand underneath his chin. It seems Minato may have added a bit of his chakra to the seal. Honestly, this does not surprise me one bit. Minato was always the cautious type, he said. Exactly, during that time Naruto apparently spoke with Minato-sensei, and obviously he soon learned of his heritage from him, explained Kakashi. Jiraiya nodded in understanding. I see, at least this makes things easier. I was never too good at explaining things anyway, he replied. Kakashi then turned to the Hokage. Excuse me Hokage-sama, but I must ask you who should train Sasuke. I was initially planning on taking Sasuke for the month to teach him how to properly use his Sharingan, he asked. How about Anko? Anko? Hiruzen nodded. Yes, Anko, she could possibly teach Sasuke how to suppress and control his curse seal. At the moment he is susceptible to the seal's influence, especially with his deep hatred for Itachi. Sasuke needs to learn how to control his dark urges, and there is no other person in the village with this kind of experience other than Anko, he replied. I guess that makes sense, but what else could Anko teach him? Have you forgotten about her affinity to fire and her snake summoning contract? Anko has a wealth of knowledge that she could pass on to Sasuke, and I believe she may be the right sensei for him at this point in time. Kakashi nodded in understanding. Alright, I guess that could work out, I'll make sure to introduce him to her sometime tomorrow, he said. Kakashi, Jiraiya, over the month I want you two to also occasionally check on Sasuke and his curse seal. I'm not expecting you two to remove, but please try and counter its effect, said the Hokage. Hi Hokage-sama, hi sensei, they said. Hiruzen then sighed in relief and clasped his hands. I think we should conclude our meeting for now, make sure to keep this information private among us first. I'll make sure Konoha begins to prepare for the war, and for Orochimaru's attack, you two should make sure that Naruto is prepared for what is to come. We will need him to be at his best. Of course Hokage-sama, I'm confident that my students will live up to their potential. You're placing quite a big bet on the kid, in my opinion he has big shoes to fill if you want him to surpass Minato. But I guess I'll give the kid a go. Truth be told, I did plan on taking him on as a student soon, I just didn't think it would be this soon. Hiruzen nodded in understanding. Alright then, both of you are dismissed, he said. The two high-ranking ninjas nodded in return before quickly vanishing. Hiruzen sighed once the two were gone. He walked over to the window of his office. The window held a great view of the Hokage's monument. The Sandame's eyes were glued on one of the 4 faces there, and it wasn't the one of his own. His gaze was directed at the face of his successor. Minato, what would you do if you were in my place? Chapter 4. Preparation is key. Both Naruto and Sasuke waited patiently by the team's usual training ground. Kakashi had told them to meet him, but they should have expected him to be late. It had already been an hour since their assigned time, and still there was no sign of Kakashi whatsoever. After a few more minutes of waiting, a large puff of smoke suddenly appeared in the middle of the training ground. Both Naruto and Sasuke turned their attention to the cloud of smoke, knowing that their sensei had finally arrived. In a way, it was his trademark entrance. Kakashi walked out of the smoke and towards his two genin students. "Sorry I was late, you two. There was a kid who was lost in the middle of the market district and I had to help him find his way back home," he explained. Naruto and Sasuke turned to each other with looks of disbelief. They still couldn't believe that someone of Kakashi's age and status still tried these lame excuses. The two then turned to their sensei with the same neutral looks on their faces. "Sensei, you don't seriously expect us to believe that?" Sasuke nodded in agreement. "Yeah, he's right, we're not idiots," he added. Kakashi sighed. "So they're finally learning," he mumbled softly. The masked Jonin then shook his head and straightened up. He directed his attention towards the Uchiha first and foremost. "Sasuke, for the following month I've found the perfect teacher for you. Unfortunately I can't train you because I've decided to train Naruto this time," he said. Sasuke's eyes widened in surprise. He clenched his fists in anger and disappointment and he wanted Kakashi to be his teacher for the month since he was only one capable of training him in his Sharingan. "Kakashi-sensei, I need you to teach me. I'm going to be up against that Hyuga and he'll be armed with his Byakugan. I can outdo him with my Sharingan, but I need your help to master it." Kakashi nodded in understanding. "That is true, Sasuke, but I've already trained you over Naruto and Sakura in the past. You were much more advanced than them at the time of our mission in Wave and I taught you a few fire jutsus. It's Naruto's turn to learn some new skills and as good as Neji is, I believe that Gaara Kid is probably a scarier opponent. Naruto will have to be at his best for that fight," he explained profusely. Naruto smiled brightly. He was beginning to feel excited about his training with Kakashi. Sasuke on the other hand was growing in anger by the second. He wanted to answer back and continue to argue with the masked Jonin, but Kakashi cut him off before he could so. "You have nothing to worry about anyway, Sasuke. Your teacher for the next month is the perfect teacher for you at the moment. She could help you with some of your fire manipulation. She's quite knowledgeable on the element and she also bears the same mark as you. She could help you resist and maybe even control the seal Orochimaru placed on you." The blonde genin saw the anger in his teammate's eyes. He decided to walk over and place a hand on his shoulder. "Come on team, stop being so whiny about all this. I'm sure it won't be that bad," he said as a confident grin appeared on his face. "After all, I'm expecting a challenging fight from you." Sasuke turned to Naruto with an emotionless expression. He studied the face of his teammate and he could see that he was purposely trying to help him feel better, the only way Naruto can. Soon he sighed in defeat. "Very well then, but this teacher better be as good as you say, sensei," he said. Kakashi smiled underneath the mask. Despite how different the two of them were and despite how often they fought, they were definitely best friends. It really brought back memories for Kakashi. He was reminded of his days with Obito and Rin. Of course Kakashi resembled Sasuke, Obito with Naruto, and Rin with Sakura. It was frightening just how similar these teams were despite the gap in their generations. It was even stranger knowing that Kakashi was training his sensei's own son. "Don't worry, Sasuke, I'll personally vouch for her myself. To find her, just head over to the dango shop in the middle of the market district. Once there, ask for a certain Anko Mitarashi. Tell her I sent you and then she'll begin your training. Though let me warn you, she's a bit sadistic when it comes to training, but I'm sure you'll do fine, Sasuke." Naruto's eyes widened as he listened to Kakashi's explanation. "The crazy snake lady from the second exam?" he yelled in shock. Kakashi blinked a few times before nodding in confirmation. "Yeah, and now that you mention she was proctor of the second exam. Well, at least that makes things easier. Now you know who to go look for, Sasuke," he said. Sasuke closed his eyes and massaged his temples. Why did it have to be her? He thought to himself. Meanwhile Naruto stood beside Sasuke laughing loudly. He could barely control himself and Sasuke was finding it difficult to restrain himself from hitting his teammate. "Good luck with the Snake Lady team, Kami knows you'll need it," he laughed. Sasuke scowled as he turned to Naruto. While Naruto was in his fits of laughter, he grabbed the collar of his shirt and he pulled him to face him. "Listen to me, dope, but listen to me good. You got lucky with your teachers, so you better make it to the finals. Do you understand me? Anything less would be a disappointment. I'm hoping to see you there so that I could kick your ass in front of everybody," he hissed threateningly. Naruto had a foxy grin on his face as he pushed Sasuke away from him. "Don't worry about me, team, worry about yourself, because I guarantee you that I'll end up kicking your ass in the finals," he replied confidently. Sasuke nodded with a smirk of his own. "Remember, Naruto, it's finals or bust. You claim to be my rival, well, in that case I'd expect nothing less from my rival," he answered back. The young blonde chuckled before extending his hand to Sasuke's. "Let's shake on it, Sasuke, it's finals or bust," he said. The Uchiha extended his hand and the two rivals shook hands. "See you in a month, dope. Right back at you, team." Konoha Hot Springs. "Sensei, what are we doing here? Shouldn't we start our training already?" whined Naruto. "Patience, Naruto, we're looking for someone here. I won't be alone in training you for the next month, you'll be having a second teacher for the next month, and I assure you he's a good teacher." Before Naruto could answer back, the two began to hear a perverse giggle come from a bush just outside the fences of the hot springs. "Ah, speak of the devil," said Kakashi, "come follow me Naruto, I'll introduce you to your other teacher." The two walked closer to the suspicious bush, and as they came closer the sound of giggling got louder and louder, until eventually they stood in front of the bush itself. Kakashi had a small smirk underneath his mask as he stared at the bush. He had to admit that Jiraiya had a knack of hiding himself in these sorts of things. "Lord Jiraiya, there's someone here to see you," he said. Naruto watched in confusion as Kakashi seemingly spoke to a bush, but then out of nowhere a man suddenly appeared from inside the bush. Naruto jumped back in shock as he stared at the large white-haired man. "What the hell, where did you come from, you old man?" he yelled in shock. "Wait, better yet, what the hell are you even doing here? Oh Kami, you're peeping, aren't you? You big pervert." The white-haired man's eyes widened in fear as he began to hear high-pitched shrieks come from the hot springs. He turned to the young blonde with an annoyed look. "Damn it kid, shut up, I was working on some research for my books," he yelled in response. "Research? What kind of research is this, you sick pervert?" he asked before turning to Kakashi. "Sensei, what are we even doing here with this creepy old man?" Kakashi chuckled as he watched the two bicker. Before the argument could continue, he decided it was best to play as the peacemaker. "Actually Naruto, he's the second teacher was talking about," he said in a casual tone. "What? Why this guy? Believe it or not, Naruto, Jiraiya-sama here is actually a great teacher. He trained your father." Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he stared at the old man in disbelief. Jiraiya had a smug grin on his face as he watched the priceless expression on Naruto's face. "That's right, you little brat, so work on your respect. I'm not just the Yondaime sensei, I'm a member of the famed Sannin of Konoha, I'm the sage of Mount Myoboku. I'm none other than Jiraiya the gallant," he declared in an overdramatic fashion. Naruto sweat-dropped as he watched the old man toot his own horn. "Seriously sensei? This guy couldn't have been my dad's teacher, he doesn't look like much," he said. Jiraiya scowled at Naruto's dismissal of him. "Shut up brat, I should be saying the same thing to you. I can't believe you're my prized student's brat, you don't look like much either," he replied. A tick mark formed on Naruto's forehead, but before he could jump and attack the Sannin, Kakashi jumped in between them and stopped the two. Honestly, Jiraiya may have been much older than him, but after seeing this he acted as if he was Naruto's age instead. "Naruto, calm down, looks can be deceiving, and Jiraiya-sama here is one of the most powerful and renowned ninjas of Konoha, and he's willing to train you for the next month. So I suggest for you not to get in his bad side, seeing as how he is doing off his own free will, and also let's not waste any more time, we need to begin our training as early as possible," he explained calmly. The young blonde understood Kakashi's explanation of the situation and thought that if the old man was as good as Kakashi said, and then he could really help him achieve his goal to become Hokage. And if this Jiraiya guy really trained his father, then he was probably a great teacher for him. "Naruto, yesterday Jiraiya-sama and I discussed your training schedule for the next month, and both of us agreed that it was best if we kept our training outside of Konoha. We know of a spot just on the outskirts of Konoha where we'll have peace and privacy for our training. So I suggest for you to head back to your apartment and pack your bags, we'll meet you by the gates to begin your training." The young blonde's anger and annoyance quickly dissipated upon the mention of his training. He nodded at his sensei before hastily running back home to begin his packing. Once Naruto was out of sight, Jiraiya turned to look at Kakashi. "How'd you get him to behave so easily?" he asked in amazement. "It's really quite simple, Jiraiya-sama, just mention training and he'll fall in line immediately. He may be a hyper and troublemaking kid, but he's a good kid at heart." Jiraiya nodded in agreement. "Honestly, after finally meeting after all these years, he sure does remind me of Kushina. He may look like Minato, but he acts a lot like Kushina," he exclaimed. Kakashi chuckled softly as memories of the deed surfaced in his mind. "Yeah, but he does have his moments. During a few missions when Naruto was serious, he actually reminded me a bit of sensei. During everyday life Naruto's just as loud and brash as Kushina-san, but I think eventually in time he'll learn to mellow things down, it'll come with a bit of maturing," he said. "I guess you're right, Kakashi, maybe in a little bit of time we may have another Minato in our hands. Hell, just looking at the kid I was reminded when I first met Minato as a genin, if you take off the whiskers the two are practically twins." "Yeah, but Naruto still has a long way to go before he reaches Minato-sensei's level. But I believe that if there's anyone who could surpass the Yondaime, it'll be Naruto." Jiraiya raised a single eyebrow from that statement. Kakashi wasn't someone to make such bold claims like that. "I've trained Minato, and I saw him grow before my very eyes. I watched him grow from being my genin to being my Hokage. I've had many great students, but by far Minato was the very best. Are you sure Naruto could reach that level? That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid." Kakashi nodded. "I fully believe Naruto has what it takes. He may not seem like much at first, but trust me when I say this, Naruto has a knack for making the impossible possible, he explained. I hope you're right, Kakashi, because the future of Konoha rests on that boy. A few hours later. Naruto had finished packing his things and he met up with his two teachers by the village gates. He still felt uncomfortable being around the old pervert, but he trusted Kakashi's word for it, and if Kakashi said that he was a great teacher for him, that he was going to trust his judgment, no matter how questionable it could be sometimes. Once they regrouped by the village gates, the small made a small journey towards a thick forest just outside of Konoha. It took them roughly 3 hours to make it here, but once they arrived the group quickly set up their camp. For the next month they were going to stay here in this forest with no distractions, their main focus was training Naruto and nothing else. The young blonde had to be at his best for what was to come, not only for the Chunin exams, but also for the future. Once all the preparations were complete, Naruto was led by the two to a forest clearing. This was the location they decided it was best to train Naruto. Jiraiya and Kakashi towered over the young blonde. Both now adopted solemn expressions as they faced their student. There was no time for fooling around. Naruto, I know we got off the wrong foot, but I need you to trust me. Do whatever Kakashi and I tell you to do. If you do, then I promise you that you'll leave this forest a new man. You'll be able to do things you've never done before, and you'll be able to defeat opponents you wouldn't have been able to defeat before. Do you understand? Naruto nodded eagerly as a response. Jiraiya saw the excitement and enthusiasm in the young boy, and it really reminded him of himself back when he was Naruto's age. Kakashi told me that your dream was to be Hokage, is that correct? Hi sensei. Good, Naruto, I've been trained by the Sandaime Hokage, and I've trained the Yondaime Hokage. I can help you become a Hokage in the future. Naruto smiled brightly as he heard Jiraiya mention his affiliation with the two most recent Hokages. After hearing this and after seeing the man serious-eyed, he began to question his original view of Jiraiya. Maybe the old sage wasn't as bad as he initially thought, sure he may have been a peeping pervert, but from what he's heard so far, the man was a great teacher and a great ninja. Naruto could learn a lot from the man. Jiraiya then grabbed a large scroll from his bag. He threw it on the ground just in front of Naruto. Open the scroll, kid, he ordered. Naruto did as he was told, and upon opening the scroll a few things popped out of it. There were a few more scrolls inside, and there were even a few notebooks and books. What are these things? Naruto asked. Naruto, these are some of Minato's old notes, scrolls, books and equipment. For the next month Kakashi and I decided to teach you one of your father's old techniques. This technique is still incomplete, but even in its beginner form, it is a deadly jutsu. The Toad Sage explained. Whoa, what kind of technique is this? Naruto asked in complete awe. Jiraiya raised a single finger. Kakashi will explain the jutsu later on, but before we get to that I plan on teaching you how to summon, he replied. The mention of that jutsu brought a few memories back for Naruto. Oh, like the ones you used, Kakashi-sensei. Didn't you summon dogs or something? He asked the Jonin. The copy nin gave his student a classic eye smile. Yes and no, Naruto. Jiraiya-sama will teach you the summoning jutsu, but it won't be for the dogs. The dog summoning contract is for me, but Jiraiya-sama will give you the toad summoning contract. It is the same summoning contract Minato-sensei used, and it is also one of the most powerful summoning contracts in the world, he explained. Naruto raised a skeptical eyebrow. Really, toads? He asked. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, the toads are very powerful, but they are also very prideful. Now I act as the sage of the toad summons, and I am also sole carrier of the toad summoning contract. I've never given this summoning contract to anyone other than Minato, but seeing as how you're his son, I'm sure he would have wanted you to also have this summon, he said. I guess that makes sense, if the toads were good enough for dad, then they're good enough for me. Kakashi then raised 2 fingers. Now Naruto, the second jutsu will be taught by yours truly. Both Jiraiya-sama and I know how to use this technique, but he'll be too preoccupied with your summoning training. The second jutsu is an A-rank jutsu created by sensei. It took him 4 whole years to create it, but when he finished it, this jutsu wreaked absolute havoc. It's the Rasengan. Could you show me the Rasengan? Kakashi nodded. Of course I can, he said. The masked Jonin brought out his hand and he began to concentrate his chakra. Soon a spiraling blue ball emerged in his hand. Naruto watched in awe as Kakashi ran to a nearby tree and used the Rasengan on it. The tree was hit by an enormous force, causing the whole thing to uproot and fall. Naruto stood up in shock as he watched the jutsu's damage. He didn't expect something so small to have such devastating damage. That's not even in its full power, Naruto. I only used a quarter of its required chakra. That's only a quarter of its strength. Naruto yelled in shock. Yes, and to be honest, Naruto, the Rasengan isn't even a complete jutsu. One thing Minato-sensei never accomplished was incorporating an element with the Rasengan. Maybe one day you could achieve what he couldn't. But that'll be farther down the road. For now I will teach you how to form a Rasengan first. It also helps that we found a way to make the learning experience much easier and quicker. Naruto's excitement was now through the roof, he was going to be taught how to summon, and he was going to learn a powerful A-rank jutsu. This could seriously help him achieve his dream if these were what made his father the Hokage, and then these could do the same for Naruto. How can we speed up the process? I'm glad you asked, Naruto. Kakashi replied with a smile underneath his mask. This training method is actually unique only to you. You are the only one capable of doing this, your chakra reserves are already at a cage level, and you could already summon hundreds of shadow clones. Only you can summon hundreds of shadow clones without feeling tired, a normal person would have probably died of chakra exhaustion or something. What does my shadow clones have to do with this? I'm guessing you never really noticed then. When shadow clones are dispelled, the knowledge they learn during their existence returns to the user. Originally, when the Nidaime Hokage created this technique, the purpose was mainly for recon and information gathering. It was later that they found a use for it in the battlefield. So, in a sense, Naruto, we could use your clones to train with you, and once you dispel them, you will gain the knowledge that they learned, thus speeding up the process of your training. What the hell? Why was I never told of this earlier? Honestly, Naruto, I thought you would have noticed it earlier, especially with the amount of shadow clones you use in a daily basis, he answered truthfully. But Naruto, remember this though, this training method isn't perfect. It has its own flaws, and they are major flaws. When you train with clones, make sure that when you do dispel them, do it slowly and not instantly. If you dispel 100 clones in an instant after training, your brain will go into an overload from too much information at one time. Be sure to dispel them slowly to avoid any damages to your brain. Naruto gulped nervously. That is something Naruto should look out for. Is there anything else I should know about this training method? He asked. Kakashi nodded. Yeah, this training method doesn't help with your physical fitness and conditioning. It only relays information back to the brain and not to the body, so if you want to improve your strength or stamina, then you'll have to work on that yourself, he answered. I guess that makes sense, muttered Naruto. So what else will we be training on? Any other cool jutsus or techniques? Kakashi shook his head this time. Unfortunately, Naruto, the answer is no. We don't want to overbear you with too many jutsus. Instead, you will also be learning chakra control, some genjutsu defense, and some academic learning using your shadow clones. If you really want to be Hokage, you need to be strong and intelligent. Naruto nodded in understanding. He didn't necessarily mind it, considering it wasn't him who was going to be doing the studying. It was his clones. So, what'll I personally work on? You'll be working on some taijutsu, physical fitness, and summoning. For the summoning jutsu, it would cost you too much chakra to continually summon things, so it would be for the best if you and only you stick to that. Sounds good, sensei. But Sasuke. The young Uchiha was hiding behind a tree in one of Konoha's training grounds. He was panting and out of breath. His training under Anko started with a survival training exercise where Anko hunted Sasuke down, and his objective was stay alive until she decided he'd proved that he was worthy of being her student. So far Sasuke had done well, but the snake mistress was definitely not holding back. She was out for blood, Sasuke's blood to be exact. The Uchiha scowled as he recalled his sensei's words. Kakashi-sensei, when you come back I'm so going to kill you for this, he silently thought to himself. Oh, there you are. Sasuke turned to glance behind the tree, and there he found Anko breathing out another fireball. Oh shit, not this again, he muttered before running away from the tree. You'll pay for this, Kakashi. But Naruto. The young blonde sat down in a private area with a toad sage. His clones were all over the area training in their different fields. While the original Naruto was scheduled to work on his own special training plan, for the next month, Naruto was going to alternate between summoning training and some fitness and taijutsu training. For now, though, he was stuck with Jiraiya for some summoning. Naruto will begin by having you sign the toad summoning contract, said Jiraiya. The toad-san and then weaved through hand seals, Kuchiyus no Jutsu. A large puff of smoke appeared, and in the middle of the smoke was a large orange and blue toad. The toad had a scroll on its mouth. Naruto was amazed by the size of this toad. At first, summoning toad sounded kind of lame for him, but after seeing how big the toads actually were, he was beginning to feel excited about the prospect of summoning them. The toad slowly lowered the scroll to Naruto. Jiraiya walked over to the scroll and opened it in front of Naruto. Upon being opened, Naruto quickly noticed the various red signatures and thumb marks around the summoning contract. He soon realized that the markings were actually signatures, and true to Jiraiya's word, the final two names in the scroll were for Jiraiya, then the Yondaime Hokage. Listen kid, if you want to sign with the toads you'll have to sign your name with your own blood and place a mark of each your fingers in the bottom, once again using your own blood. Naruto nodded in understanding. He quickly bit the tip of his thumb and wrote his signature down on the scroll, and then afterwards he bit the tip of each finger on his right hand before placing his fingertips just beneath the signature. Once this was done, the large toad quickly walked over and rolled the scroll back into its tongue. It then disappeared, leaving another plume of smoke. Alright Naruto, now that you've signed the contract, I'll teach you how to perform the jutsu itself. For the next few minutes Jiraiya then began to explain and demonstrate the required hand seals for Naruto, and he also began to explain to him the required chakra output to be able to summon a true toad. After his explanation Naruto was ready and geared up to go, he quickly weaved through hand seals before biting the tip of his thumb. Uchiha's no jutsu, he yelled as he slammed his hand onto the ground. Smoke appeared, but underneath all the smoke was none other than a tiny insignificant tadpole. The confident smile on Naruto's face quickly faltered into a look of disappointment. Jiraiya looked in and whistled in appreciation. Well, looks like we're going to be in for a long day. Hours later. After countless numbers of failed attempts, Jiraiya was beginning to lose patience with the young boy. He was impressed earlier on after seeing the amount of clones he managed to form, but his control was awful. He couldn't translate the chakra output he placed on his clones onto his summoning. He knew the blonde could do it, but for some reason he was failing repeatedly. But as much as Jiraiya teased him about his constant failures, he began to feel somewhat reminiscent after watching the young genin. He didn't admit it to Naruto, but he was very much the same when he first tried summoning, and so was Minato even. Everyone had to start somewhere, but at least in Minato's case, it only took him a few errors before he managed to correct himself. After continually seeing Naruto fail in this task, Jiraiya decided that he needed to mix this training up a bit in order to help speed things up. Naruto, stop that for now and follow me. I think I know a way to help you learn this technique faster. Naruto nodded and soon he was led by Jiraiya towards a nearby cliff's edge. The young blonde glanced down the cliff and his eyes widened as he stared at the gigantic drop. So why are we even here, sensei? He asked. Naruto, you simply aren't progressing enough in your training, and I think I found the perfect way to motivate you, he replied, but before we begin here's a small hint. Dig deep and gather as much chakra as you can. The genin raised an eyebrow out of suspicion. What do you mean by, he said, but before he could finish his sentence, he was pushed right into the large gorge. Tears were streaming down his face, and his yells echoed around the area. You crazy fucking bastard, if I survive this I'll kill you, he yelled in anger, but as soon as he recollected himself, he realized how quickly he was falling. He quickly closed his eyes and focused. A large amount of chakra began to surround the young blonde, and after feeling the large surge of power, Naruto once again used the jutsu. Uchiha's no jutsu. Naruto closed his eyes feeling nervous. He felt as though as if he summoned another tadpole and that he was going to drop to his death. But instead of there being a tadpole, there stood a gigantic red toad armed with a small katana, and the toad was even smoking a pipe. Jiraiya's jaw dropped as he watched from the top of the cliff. He expected Naruto to summon someone, but he didn't expect it to be Gamabunta of all toads. Explaining things to him was going to be troublesome. Who dares summon me, the great Gamabunta? Naruto opened his eyes and realized that he wasn't falling anymore, and he even looked down to see the large toad he was standing on top of. Holy crap, I summoned you? I didn't know toads could grow this big. The toad known as Gamabunta heard the childish voice on top of his head. He turned and looked up only to find a dancing young blonde. Who the hell are you, kid? There's no way in hell that you summoned me. Naruto smiled and pointed a thumb at himself. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze is at your service, the future Hokage of Konoha, he declared. Gamabunta's eyes widened in shock as he stared at the young boy. Memories from years ago suddenly surged back to him. He remembered seeing Minato with a baby boy, and it seems that the kid has grown up since then. In fact, the last time he saw him was during the Kyuubi's attack. You're Minato's kid? Naruto nodded in response. Yeah, he may have been Hokage, but I'll surpass him in no time, he replied. Gamabunta then burst out into laughter. I like you, kid, you've got spunk. So would you summon me anyway? He asked. Naruto shrugged. My crazy sensei threw me off a cliff to help me with my summoning, and while I was falling I accidentally summoned you, he answered in reply. Who's your sensei? Some pervert named Jiraiya, he claims to have trained my dad. Gamabunta scowled in response. He quickly began to leap upwards towards the cliff in search of Jiraiya. Naruto held on to the toad. The sudden movement was unexpected, but at least it made climbing the cliff so much easier. As soon as they reached the top they found Jiraiya standing there looking nervous. Gamabunta used his tongue to drop Naruto off to the ground before facing the toad sage. Jiraiya, you idiot, next time don't do something so reckless. You owe me sake for this, and it won't be coming cheap either, he yelled. Jiraiya nodded slowly while looking down in shame. Damn, why don't the toads show me any respect? The slugs revered Tsunade, and the snakes respect Orochimaru. Why couldn't they do the same for me, he thought to himself. After a few more minutes of scolding from Gamabunta, the toad decided to simply return to his home. Soon after that Jiraiya turned to Naruto, and he found him staring at him with a deadly gaze. I swear to Kami-sensei, one day I'll find a way to pay you back for this. You won't know when or how, but vengeance will be mine. I wasn't known as the prank king for nothing after all. Jiraiya gulped once more, the kid seemed dead serious about it, and if the rumors about him were true, then Jiraiya was absolutely screwed. The next day. After the whole toad summoning fiasco from the day before, Jiraiya decided to up the ante for Naruto's summoning training. He had already summoned Gamabunta, and there wasn't much more he could do other than that, but he needed the consistency in his summons. Jiraiya's training with Naruto now comprised of him learning how to summon specific toads for specific purposes, rather than making a random summon and hoping it was the toad you were looking for. They didn't really expect to grow into the next Yondaime Hokage over a month, but they did need to teach Naruto his father's techniques, and when better to start than now. The boy was eager, Konoha needed a generational defining shinobi, and war was on the horizon. The sooner Naruto learned the Yondaime's trademark techniques, the better. Naruto was a hard worker, but his father was also the same, but not only that, but Minato was also a genius at the same time. It would be difficult for someone to learn Minato's techniques as fast so quickly, and so because of this the shadow clones are a godsend. They hastened the process and they make life much easier for Kakashi and Jiraiya. They were confident that Naruto would be able to learn and eventually master not only summoning, but also the Rasengan. The boy's potential was immense, his heritage, his seemingly limitless chakra storages, and his hard-working and determined nature meant only that Naruto had incredible promise. Of course, Jiraiya and Kakashi didn't admit that, they didn't want to boost Naruto's ego too much. But what they could admit was how dangerous Naruto could be in the future. Now Naruto, to learn this technique you will have to first master 3 different stages. First is rotation, Kakashi explained as he held a Rasengan out with his right hand. If you look closely Naruto, the Rasengan isn't just a stagnant blue ball of chakra, it's actually a rapidly spiraling ball of chakra. For this you'll need to learn how to spin your chakra into multiple directions at once. Naruto nodded in understanding the next step is power. For this you'll need to learn how to control the chakra output in your Rasengan, Kakashi said. And finally Naruto, the last step is containment. For this you'll need to master both the rotation and power steps first, because you'll need to be able to do them simultaneously in order to learn, let alone master this technique. I guess I understand, so how are you going to teach me this technique anyway? Naruto asked. Kakashi gave his student an eye smile, and he threw him a small water balloon. Naruto quickly noticed this and caught it before it hit him. What's this for? This is how you train for rotation, Kakashi answered. Naruto raised a single eyebrow, really? A water balloon, he asked skeptically. Kakashi nodded as he held out yet another water balloon in his hand. Naruto, this will mark your progress with the first step. The point of this exercise is for you to burst a balloon using your chakra. Just like this, he said. The Jonin then began to apply chakra to his right hand. The water balloon began to churn rapidly until the water balloon exploded in Kakashi's hand. Naruto was left surprised by that. He questioned the validity of this training exercise due to the simplicity of the explanation, but from what he just saw there was no doubt that it could seriously help with his training for this jutsu, and so with a renewed sense of vigor, Naruto jumped up from his seat and stared at his own water balloon, a confident grin adorning his face. The copy nin saw the confidence in his student's eyes, and he chuckled to himself, don't take this exercise lightly, Naruto, learning the Rasengan is no easy feat. It took me 3 months to learn it, and it took Jiraiya-sama 5 months. Don't worry, I'll only need a month. Later that day. After a hard day's night of training, the 3 sat by the fire of their camp. They were cooking a few fishes they caught from the lake. The group sat in silence. Naruto was too exhausted to say anything, Jiraiya seemed to have been too busy jotting down notes, and with nothing else to do Kakashi decided to whip out his favorite book, Icha Paradise. Naruto groaned as he watched Kakashi pull out the orange book, not that again sensei, how could you continue to read that perverted smut? It's complete garbage, he said. Jiraiya's notebook then dropped to the ground along with his pen, he stared darkly at the young blonde, and Naruto wondered why that was so. You obviously have no taste in literature, you impudent brat. The Icha Paradise is a masterpiece, and it is one of the best-selling books not only in the Land of Fire, but all across the world. It is a story that delves into mature and adult topics. It has adventure, love, lust, drama, romance, action and everything else you'd ever want from a book. Why are you so defensive about this? Naruto asked. It's because I'm the author of the books, and they are masterpieces. You're just too immature and unsophisticated to understand the complexities of the Icha series. Naruto's eyes widened in shock, but honestly after having met Jiraiya, he should have expected something like this. Oh Kami, I'm stuck with 2 super perverts for the next month, Naruto groaned. Oh, stop being such a stick in the mud, kid, when you grow older I'm sure you'll begin to read my work, said Jiraiya. The young blonde rolled his eyes. Yeah right, he replied sarcastically. Well, I managed to convert your father, I'm sure you'll turn eventually. Naruto jumped up from his seat in shock. My dad was a pervert. He yelled. Jiraiya chuckled, yeah, but he kept it a secret. He used to read all my work, but not many people know about that, he said. I don't think I could ever see my dad the same way again. Don't worry kid, one day you'll be just like your dad. You just need to grow a bit older. 1 week later. The whole week had passed and Naruto was beginning to show strides in his Rasengan training. The young blonde initially took the training for granted, he saw how effortlessly Kakashi managed to pop the water balloon and he firmly believed that the same thing was going to happen to him. But unfortunately, it wasn't so, it actually took him a whole week to master the first step, this just went to show how complicated the technique was, but to be fair to Naruto, a week was still extraordinary. While Naruto continued his training, Kakashi and Jiraiya stood by a flowing river. Both found an isolated area within the thick forest, this was the perfect place to conduct their brief and private meeting. "Any news Jiraiya-sama?" asked Kakashi. Jiraiya nodded his head as a grim expression adorned his face. "Yeah, I just got a small message from sensei, I left a toad with him so that he could contact us. Unfortunately, there have been 2 murders in Konoha just in the past week," he replied. Kakashi's lone visible eye widened in shock. 2 murders, who were killed and who's the prime suspect? He asked. Apparently one of the genin competitors from the sound were killed, I believe Dosu was his name. The other was unfortunately one of ours, Heiichiko was found dead earlier today, one of the rooftops of Konoha, it was clearly murder, but at the moment there are no leads or suspects whatsoever. The copy-nin was surprised by that, he wasn't necessarily close with Heiichi, but he had known the Takebetsu Jonin since their childhood, and from what he's seen Heiichi had always been a commendable and competent ninja. Kakashi, since the breakout of the news, sensei has assigned me to be his bodyguard. When the Chunin exams finals begin, I am to serve as the old man's bodyguard, just in case Orochimaru really does decide to pop up again. The Jonin nodded in understanding, very well Jiraiya-sama, now is there anything else? He asked. Jiraiya shook his head, no that's it for now, I'll arrange another meeting if we get any more information from sensei. We should probably head back now. But Sasuke. The past week had been hell for the young Uchiha. Anko had really lived up to her name as the Konoha's crazy snake lady. The training had been intense, sadistic, and even downright deadly at times. But despite these, Sasuke could feel himself growing stronger. He had to admit that she was quite a skilled teacher, and one that suited him. Anko grinned as she stood in front of the Uchiha, you've done well over the past week Gaki, I'm actually impressed that you're still alive after all I put you through. I got to give it to you Gaki, you've got some talent, and after much thought I've decided to reward you with something she said. The snake mistress handed Sasuke a large scroll, what is this? Asked the genin. That is the snake summoning contract. With Naruto. Many weeks had passed since Naruto begun his training under both Kakashi and Jiraiya, and during that time the young genin had begun to make massive strides with his ninjutsu. What amazed both Kakashi and Jiraiya most during this month wasn't Naruto's gigantic chakra reserves, and it wasn't his undying determination, it was the attention to detail when he was learning and training in these new techniques. Even in training, Naruto began to show major glimpses of Minato. The Chunin exams finals about to start just tomorrow, and Naruto couldn't help but feel confident about his chances. During the past month he managed to learn not only the summoning jutsu, but he also learned the Rasengan. But despite Naruto having the skills to perform those 2 techniques, he was still far from mastering them. Naruto's Rasengan was still a work in progress, yes, he could perform a Rasengan, but he needed the help of a shadow clone to do so. His chakra control was still lacking, but this was going to come eventually for Naruto, as long as he continued his training. For summoning Naruto was beginning to be more consistent with his summons. He was able to summon toads the size of Gamma, but he still struggles with summoning toads the likes of Gamabunta, Gamma Hero or Gamakin. Of course this was to be expected, it would take years of training to be able to summon the great battle toads of Mount Mayaboku in a consistent manner. The whole month before this Naruto was feeling nervous about the prospect of facing Gaara, but now after all the blood, sweat and tears he placed into his training, he was feeling excited. Are you ready for this Naruto? Of course, I am Kakashi-sensei. Jiraiya nodded as he stood in between the two, well if both of you are okay, then I guess it's time to begin. Hajime. He yelled. Naruto and Kakashi quickly ran at each other, Naruto summoned 4 shadow clones, and the group all lunged at the copy-nin. Kakashi saw this coming. He grabbed a kunai from his vest and quickly dispelled the clones. But while the Jonin was preoccupied with a small group of clones, Naruto rushed in and managed to land a kick right into Kakashi's solar plexus. Kakashi skidded back a few meters as he clutched his gut in pain. He had to admit the kid packed quite a punch on him. The Jonin quickly grabbed a smoke bomb from his vest and threw it to the ground. Smoke enveloped the area leaving Naruto visionless. Naruto held a kunai by his hand in case Kakashi decides to suddenly attack him, but he waited there for minutes and nothing happened. Soon the smoke began to clear and Kakashi was nowhere in sight, Naruto narrowed his eyes, this was too suspicious, and he knew his sensei wouldn't flee. This was obviously a trick. He was soon broken from his reverie as he heard a pair of shuriken flying right at him. Naruto detected these, and he used his kunai to deflect the projectiles. He then found Kakashi standing on a tree branch, weaving through hand seals. But before Kakashi could finish the jutsu, Naruto summoned a shadow clone, and the two ran at the tree. While running towards the three, Naruto held his palm out, a blue ball of chakra was forming on the young boy's hand, and he plunged the attack onto the tree. Rasengan, he yelled. The tree was uprooted by the attack, but before it fell Kakashi jumped away in time, and while Naruto's back was turned, he completed his jutsu. Hain. Nkakik no jutsu. The ball of fire flew at Naruto. The young blonde felt the growing heat, and his eyes widened in shock as he stared at the fireball. He hastily applied chakra to his feet and jumped to dodge the incoming attack, but as soon as he was in the air, there was another barrage of shurikens thrown his way. This time, however, Naruto didn't expect this attack and he was left defenseless. He forced chakra to the soles of his feet and jumped up into the sky to avoid the projectiles. The spar carried on for another 20 minutes. Both Kakashi and Jiraiya had been impressed with how long Naruto was lasting against Kakashi. By the end of the spar, Naruto seemingly managed to fool and corner Kakashi in the same cliff he was thrown out of for his summoning training. Kakashi then began to laugh softly. "You've done well, Naruto, I'm sorry to say this, but you still haven't defeated me," yet he answered back. "What do you mean? I've trapped you here. I have a kunai pointed at you, you have nowhere to go." "That may be true, Naruto, but remember what I told you. Expect the unexpected." Kakashi then exploded into a cloud of smoke, then as soon as that happened Naruto felt two hands grab his ankles. He realized his mistake now and before he could flee he was dragged onto the ground, he was left stuck from the neck down. The copy nin then jumped up from the ground and he squatted in front of Naruto, he gave his student his trademark eye smile. Naruto on the other hand glared at his sensei, the man was just too sneaky in craft. He thought that he finally had him, but it seems that it wasn't the case. "Like I said a while ago, Naruto, you've done well and you should be proud of your growth and progression. But you still have a long way to go before you could defeat me. You're still a bit inconsistent and shaky with your jutsus, and you're still a bit impatient and impulsive, but that's nothing a little bit of practice couldn't fix." Jiraiya then walked over to the two with a smile on his face. "I must say, Gaki, you've done pretty well for yourself. You reminded me of Minato for a second there when I watched you," he said. Naruto smiled brightly at the two as he was soon helped up from the ground. "Damn, I thought I had you, Kakashi-sensei. I swear one day I will defeat you," he said. "Oh, I'm sure you will, Naruto, but for now I'm still better. Hey kid, seeing as how well you've progressed over the past month, Kakashi and I decided to give you a gift," said Jiraiya. "A gift? What kind of gift?" he asked suspiciously. "This isn't anything perverted, is it?" Jiraiya's shoulders slumped. "No, it isn't anything perverted, you brat, just be thankful we even got you these," he replied as he threw Naruto a small storage scroll. Naruto caught the scroll and opened its contents. He was surprised bunch of clothes appeared from the scroll. Naruto quickly glanced through the items. He noticed a strange grey book, some black Anbu-style pants, a dark blue long-sleeved shirt, a black fishnet undershirt, and some black sandals. But the one thing among the pile that really caught Naruto's eyes was the haori. It was a white haori with red flames on the hem. "So what do you think of our gift?" asked Jiraiya. Naruto walked over and grabbed the haori, he then tried it on himself and it just felt right. It fit him like a glove. A smile began to form on Naruto's face as he wore the garment. "I love it." Chapter 5. The Finals. There was a large group of people within the Konoha Stadium, the finals for the Chunin exams were finally about to begin. The whole stadium was packed with civilians and ninjas alike, and of course up in the cage box was the Hokage and the Kazekage themselves. So far almost all of the competitors were present for the event. The only one missing was Konoha's most unpredictable ninja. Naruto had yet to return to Konoha, and people were beginning to wonder if the boy was going to show up or not, and to be fair people didn't blame him if he decided not to show up. His opponent Gaara seemed to be the worst opponent possible among the genin candidates. Luckily for Naruto though, his match was the last among the 4 possible fights, and so he still had a lot of time to get to stadium. But that aside though, all other candidates stood in the middle of the arena. Genma stood in front of the 7 genin candidates, and he gave them the instructions for this round of the Chunin exams. With Naruto, Sasuke, Shikamaru, Shino and Neji being the remaining representatives of Konoha, the rest of their peers sat at a particular section of the stands. Sakura sat alongside her fellow Kunoichi Ino, Hinata and Tenten, and with them were the rest of the boys. Kiba and Choji sat just behind the 4 girls, and with them was Rock Lee. The green-clad Taijutsu expert was gravely injured after his fight with Gaara, but he made sure to make his way to the stadium to cheer on for his fellow Konoha shinobi, and of course his rival and teammate Neji. Unlike Kiba and Choji though, instead of sitting down on the seats around the stadium, Lee instead sat on a wheelchair. Ino carefully observed the candidates for the Chunin exams finals before turning her attention to the pinket sitting right next to her. Hey forehead, Sasuke-kun is down there. Where's the idiot Naruto? Don't tell me he's not showing up, she remarked. Sakura was brought out of her thoughts. Just the sudden mention of Naruto's name sent a shiver down her spine. It brought her back to what she saw in the Forest of Death, the red and malicious chakra that engulfed Naruto. It frightened her. Her free arm unconsciously hovered over the scar Naruto had given her, she rubbed it slowly, and it was still a bit sore. Ino noticed Sakura's weird reaction, she obviously had something in her mind and she wasn't acting like herself. Hey forehead, are you okay? She asked. Sakura shook her head before turning to face Ino, she gave the platinum blonde a meek smile. Yeah Ino, I'm alright, don't worry, she assured. Ino didn't buy it, she knew Sakura well enough to notice that she didn't have the same spunk that she usually had, for started she just called her Ino, there wasn't an insult anywhere there directed at her. She then noticed Sakura's hand gently. It was gently rubbing a red mark on her arm. Ino studied it and she realized it was a scar. Sakura seemed to be nursing it, but she decided not to question her on it yet. Sakura really seemed out of it and she doubted she was going to give her a proper answer. Anyway forehead, before you dozed off I asked you about the dope, do you think he'll actually show up? Ino asked once more. Sakura shrugged softly, I don't know Ino, I honestly can't tell you, she replied in a weak tone. Before Ino could reply though, a third voice called out to them, don't worry, Naruto-kun will come, I'm certain of it, said Hinata. The two girls were surprised to see Hinata sounding and acting confident for once. It was no surprise to almost everyone that Hinata was infatuated with Naruto, it was clear to everyone but Naruto himself. The young blonde was definitely way too dense sometimes. The group remained silent for the next few minutes. There was nothing else to talk about really. Hinata acted as her usual silent self, while Sakura simply seemed out of it. Ino had no one else to talk to considering they only met Tenten recently, and she seemed to be more of a tomboy. Then there was an announcement in the stadium, ladies and gentlemen, the opening battle for the Chunin exams finals are about to begin. The opening fight will have the previous two Rookie of the Year winners up against each other. It will be Sasuke Uchiha versus Neji Hyuga. The audience began to cheer loudly for the two contestants. This was easily one of the anticipated fights in Chunin exams history. It was a battle between two geniuses, two prodigies. The last loyal Uchiha was up against the Hyuga clan's most promising branch family member. It was the Sharingan versus the Byakugan. The other contestants vacated the area, leaving only Sasuke and Neji. The two of them stood on opposite sides of the area. They stood tall as they continued to stare each other down, neither of them flinching or showing any sign of weakness to their opponent. Genma stood in between the two contestants and he glanced at the two, he could see instantly that both of them were more than ready to go. Alright, let the first fight begin, he announced, and just like that Sasuke quickly weaved through the hand seals for his clan's signature jutsu. Pain. Nkakuk no jutsu. The large fireball flew towards Neji, but the young Hyuga remained cool, calm and collected. As the fireball drew closer and closer, Neji simply began to spin around as a large blue wall of chakra began to surround him. Akashim Kaiten. The fire collided with the wall of chakra and it was quickly extinguished. Sasuke scowled upon seeing this, he was disappointed to see his attack so easily defeated. Up in the stands, Hiashi Hyuga sat alongside the elders of the Hyuga clan, all of them watched with widened eyes at what they had just witnessed. The technique Neji used was meant to be only for the main branch family, and it was also a Jonin level technique at that. How someone like Neji could learn and utilize the technique so early on left them speechless. The boy truly was a genius. Impressive attack, but I'm afraid it's your destiny to lose to me, taunted Neji. I don't think so, replied Sasuke. The young Uchiha then ran towards his opponent and he threw a few shuriken to distract the young Hyuga. Neji saw through this and simply stopped them mid-flight. Haki KKSHM. As Sasuke ran closer towards his opponent, his Sharingan began to unveil itself. Neji noticed this and smirked, his Byakugan began to show itself as well. The two prodigies stared each other down with their respective taijutsu. Sasuke then came in attempting to punch Neji through the stomach. Neji quickly dodged this and countered with a solid punch at Sasuke's punch, sending the young Uchiha back a few meters. Sasuke landed on one knee and he wiped away the bit of blood seeping out of the corner of his lips, he scowled as he stared at the cocky look on the Hyuga's face. He quickly ran at him once more and the two engaged in a taijutsu battle. Naturally Neji had the slight advantage in taijutsu seeing as how this was his specialty, so naturally he was on the offensive. Sasuke on the other hand was on the defensive, but luckily thanks to his Sharingan, he managed to foresee and dodge most of the Neji's attacks. But on the bright side he managed to land a few good ones as well on Neji. Neji tried his best to close out Sasuke's chakra points, but the elusive Uchiha managed to dodge or block the vital hits, but he couldn't dodge them all. Niji was able to land simple punches and kicks here and there, but his Jiken style of fighting was effectively evaded by Sasuke. Sasuke grit his teeth, he hated being on the defensive. He decided to quickly throw a smoke bomb onto the ground and jump back a few meters. He underestimated Niji's skills in Taijutsu, and so he decided it was best if he changed his tactic into a mid-range game. Niji managed to see through the smoke with his Byakugan, enough at least to locate Sasuke. But before he could react he was caught in a bind, as a few lines of chakra strings were wrapped around him. He turned back to Sasuke, and his eyes widened as he saw him weaving through yet another set of hand seals. Pain. Rika no Jutsu. Niji struggled and tried to escape as the fire rushed towards him. With no other alternative, the Hyuga used Shunshin to escape the attack. Damn it, how could I have been so careless? A few more seconds and I would have been burnt. More smoke began to engulf the area, but with both their Taijutsu activated the two still managed to spot out each other. Niji instead used Hakashimkaten once more around the area to clear up the smoke. I'll admit that was good Uchiha, but not good enough. Sasuke smirked at the continuous taunts. Trust me, I'm only getting started, he replied. Senijashu. Snake slithered up from Sasuke's arms and shot towards Niji. The crowd gasped. They hadn't expected Sasuke to already be able to use summons like that. They were impressed. Even Niji was taken by surprise. He didn't have time to block or dodge the attack. The snakes collided with Niji and they sent him flying back, skidding across the ground. Many in the crowd gasped in surprise and the others simply watched in awe. It was rare for someone to have a summoning contract, let alone a genin. But also it wasn't just any other summoning contract either, it was the snake summoning contract. Niji groggily stood up and wiped the blood off the corner of his lips. Now he was angry. With a scowl on his face he quickly ran at Sasuke. The young Uchiha saw this and prepared himself. The Hyuga came in with a flurry of gentle fist strikes, and much like last time Sasuke managed to dodge a large majority of the strikes. This went on and on for what seemed like an hour. They would first engage in a Taijutsu battle, then Sasuke would stretch the battle and fight Niji with long-range and mid-range ninjutsu and genjutsu attacks, yet somehow Niji also managed to neutralize most of Sasuke's attacks. The two managed to match each other blow by blow. They truly deserved the title of genius. As the battle raged on, the two genin began to accumulate bruises and wounds, making it more and more difficult for them to continue. In the end, though the two stood apart from one another, they were nearing the point of exhaustion. They had an incredible battle for two genins, certainly a memorable way to start off this year's Chunin exam finals. Both Sasuke and Niji stared each other out, the Sharingan and Byakugan long gone due to their lack of chakra. The two stood there filled with wounds and bruises. There was patches of blood all across their body. Both of them were panting and groggy, they could barely stand any longer. At this point it was left to a battle of wills, and in this instance it turned out that Sasuke's was just stronger than Niji's. The Hyuga's knees grew shaky and he collapsed to the ground. Sasuke remained standing up, albeit barely. The crowd watched this and cheered the second Niji fell to the ground. The battle between the two was epic, and now their expectations for the remaining fights were heightened. Sasuke could barely stand himself, but he summoned all his remaining strength not to fall, but much like Niji, he too was at the brink of unconsciousness. Thankfully for him though, Genma arrived quickly to check up on Niji. They claimed that his injuries were numerous, but none of them were fatal. Soon after, a small medic arrived and brought Niji out of the arena through a stretcher. Then Genma walked over to Sasuke and announced him the winner. Sasuke smirked, but he barely had any energy left to celebrate further. Instead he basked in the applause and cheering of the crowds. He scanned through the crowd and his eyes landed at the area where the contestant sat. His small smirk suddenly disappeared into a scowl. "Dobe, where are you?" he asked himself. But Sakura and the rest of the Rookie 9 cheered for Sasuke's victory. Meanwhile, the two members of Team Guy watched in disbelief as they saw Niji fall at the hands of the Uchiha. Lee couldn't help but cheer as well though, now he was determined more than ever to train. "Oh Sasuke-kun, you're the best," yelled Ino. Sakura uncharacteristically remained silent though, she clapped loudly, but she refrained from cheering like the platinum blonde beside her. Ino usually would have noticed Sakura's strange behavior, but at the moment she was too busy cheering for Sasuke. With Genma. Once the cheering and applause died down, Sasuke was led to the arena's infirmary, while Niji was sent to the Konoha hospital. Now the arena was vacant once more, only Genma stood in the middle ready to announce the second fight of the tournament. After the initial battle, the audience was excited for the follow-up battle. "Alright, for the second fight of this year's Chunin exam finals, I'd like Shikamaru Nara and Tamari of the Sand to come down," he announced. The two genin walked down the contestants' road ahead to the arena. Tamari walked down with a confident smirk. Meanwhile, Shikamaru had a scowl plastered on his face. "This is so troublesome," he mumbled to himself. Once the two contestants were down onto the arena, Genma announced the start of the battle. "Alright, you two know the rules, right?" he asked as the two nodded in confirmation. Good, well in that case let the battle begin, he announced. With Ino. The platinum blonde cheered loudly for her teammate alongside Choji. Go Shikamaru, kick her ass, she yelled loudly. Choji's cheering however was incoherent due to the chip stuffed in his mouth. The audience all watched this particular battle, and much like the previous one it was just as entertaining, but in a more subtle manner. Neji and Sasuke's fight was a battle between two prodigies. They matched one another in Taijutsu, Ninjutsu and Jinjutsu. It was an all-out brawl between the two which ended with Sasuke as the close victor. Shikamaru and Temari's battle however was much more tactical and precise. Every move they made was calculated and intentional. It was as if the crowd was watching a live game of shogi, the tactics and strategies the two used was far more advanced for their age. Sasuke and Neji were true prodigies of ninjutsu, but Shikamaru and Temari were geniuses in an intellectual sense. The intelligence and tactical awareness of the two was simply outstanding. No, the jutsus and attacks weren't as powerful or destructive as the previous battle, but this fight was just as interesting. Page's booth. Hiruzen watched the battle in intrigue, beside him the Kazekage was just as impressed. Throughout the early stages of the finals Hiruzen noticed strange things from the Kazekage, although he was interested in this particular battle, he was much more focused and intent on watching the battle between Sasuke and Neji earlier on, despite his own daughter Temari fighting in this one right now. So far Hiruzen thought nothing of it, but he just found that one fact strange. Other than that though. The Hokage continued to watch the finals in silence alongside the Kazekage. But one other thing did disturb the Hokage. He was worried at how Naruto has yet to arrive back in Konoha. But knowing Kakashi and Jiraiya, he knew the boy was safe, he just hoped he didn't inherit too many qualities from those two over the past month. The last thing he needed was another unpunctual super pervert roaming around Konoha. You better hurry Naruto. I'm not sure how much time you still have. Even I can't extend the waiting period for you, the rules are the rules after all, he thought to himself. But Shikamaru. His battle with Temari had so far gone as planned, she played the game well, but in the end he played it better. She played her part and fell right into his plan, she may have countered a few of his moves, but in the end it was inevitable. He managed to capture Temari in his Kajime no Jutsu, the crowd was left speechless by the Nara's impressive performance. Shikamaru had a dead last reputation alongside Kiba, Choji and Naruto, the four of them tended to skip class and underachieve in the academy. So naturally people didn't think he'd amount to much in the future, but after seeing his display in the Chunin exams thus far the opinion and view on Shikamaru was quickly changing for the better. With Temari bound to his jutsu Shikamaru raised his arm to the air and Temari did the same, she tried her best to resist it, but it was to no avail. Shikamaru had a bored look on his face and just before he finished the battle, he released Temari from his hold and turned to Genma. I surrender, he said. The crowd was left speechless, even Temari and Genma were speechless. What? Did I hear you right, kid? You could win just now, said Genma. Shikamaru yawned while nodding, yeah I'm sure, I surrender, he said in a lazy tone. Genma shook his head before grabbing and pulling Temari's arm into the air, in that case, I declare Temari of Suna as the winner of this battle, he declared. What? Yelled the audience. They couldn't believe what had just happened. Shikamaru had just let go of a golden opportunity to win the battle and advance. Temari didn't know how to react either, on one hand she was glad to win, but not in these sorts of circumstances. She was named the victor, but she didn't feel like the winner, if anything her pride took a hit today. She lost to that lazy boy, and not only that she was embarrassed by that boy. Up in the stands the members of Rookie 9 had no idea how to react, the stadium was silent out of absolute disbelief. Ino however lost her temper, you suck you lazy bastard, she yelled out loud. Shikamaru managed to hear it down in the arena and he could already tell whose voice it was, troublesome, Ino's going to give me an earful for this, he muttered. But then again the young Nara merely shrugged, it was either another fight in the next round or a lecture from Ino, at this point the latter wasn't that bad. He was already exhausted from this fight anyway and he couldn't be bothered fighting Sasuke, Kankuro, Shino, Naruto or God forbid, Gaara. He was content with losing, he felt like he did enough to not embarrass the family name and there was nothing more that had to be done. As far as he was concerned he achieved what he set out to do in the first place. Soon after that Temari and Shikamaru were sent out of the arena, Temari made her way to the infirmary to nurse her injuries, while Shikamaru walked onto the audience to join his fellow genin, and as soon as he sat by the rest of the Konoha 12, he was quickly lectured by Ino. Shikamaru simply sat silently ignoring her incessant ranting, but it was getting difficult. Troublesome, he muttered softly enough for Ino not to hear. Genma then called on the contestants of the third battle, Shino Aburam and Kankuro of Suna, please head down to the stage, he called out, the two walked down onto the arena. Are you both ready to fight? Asked Genma. Shino nodded slightly to confirm his readiness. However Kankuro on the other hand shook his head. Genma turned to the boy, what's wrong kid? He asked. Tenkuro hesitated to answer a second, but then he found the perfect excuse: "My puppets aren't ready, and I failed to complete their maintenance in time. I'm afraid I can't continue," he replied. "Surely you can fight without puppets?" he asked. "Nope, sorry, my fighting style is solely dependent on puppets and unfortunately mine are not in a capable state to fight my opponent. I think I may have to forfeit this fight," he confessed. "Are you absolutely sure about that decision? There's no backing out of this?" Genma asked with an eyebrow raised out of suspicion. Tenkuro nodded his head. "Yeah, I'm sure," he answered while trying to look and sound disappointed. The Takubetsu Jonin sighed. "Okay, well, Shino Aburam is the winner of this round and he is now heading over to the next stage of the finals," he announced. Shino's emotions and reactions were indiscernible due to his jacket covering his face and his shades covering his eyes, but deep down Shino was quite disappointed. He had been training for this moment for the past month, and although he wanted to show off his growth in the past month, at least he still had his opportunity to do so in the next round. The only problem was that now his opponents were going to be even stronger, but he did have one major advantage to his opponents: he comes into the next round refreshed, seeing as how he has yet to fight today. Genma then made the two leave the arena's battleground. Shino made his way to join Sasuke and Temari, while Kankuro walked back into the audience to join his sensei Baki. The people watching the show was disappointed with the boys' decision, and so they displayed their displeasure through a heavy chorus of boos. "Alright then, for the final battle of this round, could I please have Naruto Uzumaki and Gaara of the Sand?" yelled Genma. The auburn-haired boy walked down the stairs and onto the battleground. He had a murderous and dangerous aura around him. He was ready to kill his opponent in cold blood. But his opponent had yet to show up. The crowd was mostly silent, but there were whispers and murmurs among the people, all of which wondering where the rambunctious blonde could be. Gaara's expression remained emotionless, but he was quickly losing his patience. He was excited to fight this Naruto Uzumaki, especially after the chakra he felt in the forest of death, and even Shukaku, the demon inside of him, was raring to go. The malicious chakra exhilarated Gaara. For the longest time he had been searching an opponent who could possibly match him blow for blow, but so far that opponent had yet to show up. That chakra felt familiar to him, and apparently it was to Shukaku as well, but the demon just couldn't put his finger to it. A few more minutes pass and there was still no Naruto. The crowd was growing restless. They didn't like Naruto to begin with, and now the young prankster was just wasting their time by not showing up, and they were getting annoyed further by the young blonde's antics. Many of the genin felt the same way aside from Sakura, Lee and Hinata. Lee barely knew Naruto, but from what he had seen he could tell that Naruto was not someone to run away from something. Hinata was on the same boat as Lee. She knew Naruto a bit more than Lee, and he was one of the bravest and strongest people she knew. Nothing can keep Naruto down, and he was never backing down from anybody. Sakura, however, was a bit more impassive when it came to Naruto. She knew Naruto well enough to know that he was coming to fight, but it seems that Kakashi's tardiness was rubbing off on Naruto. But at the same time she was still unsure if she was ready to see Naruto. The memories of the events in the Forest of Death was still clear in her head, and she had never been more scared for her life than she was at that moment. Not even their encounter with Zabuza could compete with Orochimaru's attack and Naruto's transformation. Although it was natural for her to fear Orochimaru, she also grew to fear Naruto and that transformation of his. She had so many unanswered questions about the young blonde. She was certain she felt that same power by the bridge during Team 7's battle with Zabuza and Haku, and that was the same power that managed to easily defeat Haku as well, not to mention it was powerful enough to stand up to Orochimaru, a legendary Sannin and an S-rank missing nin of Konoha. For so long she viewed Naruto as nothing more than a dead last with no potential for the future, but now her view on Naruto quickly turned around. He wasn't just that happy-go-lucky, immature and energetic mischief maker, he had something dark hidden inside of him, some sort of power. Sakura was unsure on what it was. Could it have been the Kekkei Genkai? Possibly. There was no telling for sure at the moment. All she knew was that the power Naruto held frightened her, and it hurt her. The scar was still clear on her arm, and it was a clear remnant of that moment. Arena battleground. Genma Saidi had given Naruto ample time to arrive, and he had yet to show up. His patience was running thin, so he decided it was time to end the fight, seeing as how Naruto had yet to show up. Well everyone, it seems like Naruto Uzumaki has yet to show up. Unfortunately this means that he is, but before Genma could finish his announcement the entire battleground was suddenly engulfed in smoke. The crowd gasped as they wondered what was going on. Soon, a few seconds later, the smoke began to disappear, and in the battleground stood three figures. At the moment they were still indiscernible, but as more and more of the smoke began to disappear, the three figures became much clearer. Most of the audience watched with widened eyes at the familiar sight before them. Jiraiya of the Sannin stood on one side with Kakashi on the other. Jiraiya had his arms crossed as a proud smirk adorned his face. The copy nin, however, had one hand on his pocket and another on the Icha book he was reading. As per usual, the masked nin looked disinterested. But it was the person in the middle which intrigued the most of the audience. In the middle of those two great ninjas was an almost eerily familiar sight. It was a young blonde with spiky hair. He stood in between the two of them proudly as a big bright smile adorned his whiskered face. Naruto's blonde spiky hair was a trademark look for him, but only now did people realize its resemblance to the yondaime's own blonde hair. Among the people of Konoha, blonde hair was usually rare. Most of the people here had brown, black and mostly dark hair with a few exceptions here and there. The Yamanaka clan had blonde hair, but their hair was more of a platinum shade of blonde. Naruto's had the exact same shape and color of Minato's blonde hair, and no one else in Konoha had a similar shade to theirs. The sight of the young blonde brought up an old memory for most of the older audience members. The young kid in the middle reminded them so much of the deceased Yondaime Hokage, the similarities were uncanny. For the past month Naruto had endured intense and sometimes even sadistic training from Kakashi and Jiraiya. The two may have seemed like useless and disinterested perverts, but Naruto had to admit that they certainly knew what they were doing as they trained him, and so with the intense training, Naruto's naturally fast metabolism, and his more healthy diet over the past month, he managed to grow in height and he also began to burn off some of his baby fat. A few of Naruto's muscles began to become much clearer and pronounced, and the baby fat across Naruto's face was quickly burned, and his face began to take a more angular shape, so all in all, he was beginning to look more and more like his father, the Yondaime Hokage. For the people in the audience it was as if they were staring at the teenage equivalent of their beloved and deceased Yondaime Hokage, but what made this much more suspicious was Naruto's connection to both Kakashi and Jiraiya. It was clear to everyone there that they were the ones who have trained Naruto over the past month in preparation for this fight. They wouldn't accompany Naruto here to the finals if they hadn't trained him before then. The parallel between Naruto and the Yondaime began to grow stronger and stronger, with both Kakashi and Jiraiya showing themselves as Naruto's teachers over the past month. Minato had a special relationship with those two ninjas as well. Jiraiya was after all his Jonin sensei when he was a genin, and when he did become a jonin, and when he took over a genin team, Kakashi was his prized student, and now seeing those two train the young blonde, it simply brought up more questions. It was natural for Kakashi to teach Naruto seeing as how he was his Jonin sensei, but seeing Jiraiya go out of his way to teach a young genin, that in Naruto's similar features to the Yondaime, made this that much more suspicious. Now along the Heiori Naruto wore, it was nearly the exact replica of the Yondaime's signature look. In fact Naruto wore practically the same outfit Minato wore. All he was missing was the Jonin vest. The audience was filled with murmurs and whispers as everyone talked about Naruto's clear resemblance to the Yondaime. It was uncanny at this point. Up in the Kage's booth, both the Hokage and Kazekage watched on in awe. The Kazekage seemed surprised by the incredible resemblance Naruto had with the Yondaime as well. Hiruzen on the other hand was calm as he watched the entire grand entrance. The old man merely shook his head with a small grin on his face. Very fitting of you Naruto, nothing about you is ever quiet is it lad? He thought to himself. The genin area however had a different reaction to the older generation. Obviously they never truly witnessed the Yondaime Hokage, all they ever knew of him was through their history books, so naturally they were unsure about the massive fuss with Naruto's sudden appearance. Many of them had to admit that there was something different about Naruto, and it wasn't just the boy's lack of orange. Appearance-wise Naruto obviously changed drastically. The Kunoichi among the Konoha 12 had to admit that Naruto looked quite good. Hinata was blushing up a storm as per usual. Tenten admired Naruto from afar, and she was impressed by the boy's sudden change. Ino was on the same boat as Tenten, but she refused to admit it to anyone. Sakura however studied Naruto more closely. There was still a bit of fear lingering in her heart, but seeing this new Naruto calmed her down a bit. There was something definitely different with this Naruto. He exuded a more mature, powerful and confident aura, a stark contrast to the immature and out-of-control kid she knew back then, and much more different than the monster she encountered in the forest. This Naruto looked as if he had everything under control, and this gave Sakura a sense of relief. She still didn't know how to react, but she was definitely intrigued thus far. Only time can tell though if her judgment was correct or not. The boys on the other hand were cheering loudly. They talked among themselves, and they admitted that Naruto's new getup was badass, but now they wondered if he could walk the walk. Kakashi and Jiraiya grinned as they watched the audience's surprised reactions. They knew that their entrance was going to cause a stir, but they didn't care at this point. Jiraiya then patted Naruto on the back, while Kakashi ruffled the young blonde's hair. "Go kick some ass for me kid," said the Sannin. "Good luck Naruto, remember what we taught you," said Kakashi. Naruto nodded his head and the two quickly disappeared, leaving a small puff of smoke. Jiraiya disappeared, only to join Hiruzen up in the Kage's booth, while Kakashi appeared in the area where all his fellow Konoha Jonin instructors were seated. Kage's booth. Hiruzen smiled as Jiraiya arrived to his side. "Good to see you again Jiraiya," he said, "so how'd your training with Naruto go?" Jiraiya nodded, "Good to see you too sensei," he replied with a smirk, "just wait and see, I assure you Naruto will give everyone here one hell of a show." The Hokage was impressed, "Very well then, I'm excited to see how much the young lad has grown in this past month. It seems though he already inherited a few of you and Kakashi's bad habits." "What are you talking about sensei? Being extremely late and having a grand entrance, doesn't that sound awfully familiar? He better not be reading your work soon, imagine if a certain retreat ever found out about this." Jiraiya's gulped nervously as his eyes widened in fear, "Oh don't worry sensei, that won't be the case. Being late was an accident, Gamabunta refused to transport us here, so we had to rush it all the way back, as for the grand entrance I just couldn't help myself. But don't worry, Naruto hasn't showed any signs of liking my work, yet the impudent brat doesn't know good literature even when it's right in his face," he said, but with the last part much more silent. Hiruzen laughed, "Yes don't worry Jiraiya, I was just joking," he replied. Meanwhile as the two conversed in their small conversation, they failed to notice the Kazukiya's more cautious posture. The second Jiraiya arrived in the booth. "Damn it, why did this idiot have to come here, this definitely makes my job much more difficult. No matter though, Jiraiya will be nothing more than a slight hindrance to me," he thought to himself. Jonin section. Kakashi arrived by the Jonin area with his eyes still glued to the smut on his hand, but despite that he still noticed the shocked looks his comrades were giving him. Asuma, Kurenai and Guy in particular stared at Kakashi demanding answers from the masked Jonin. Kakashi lowered his book and studied the faces of his comrades. "Why are you guys all looking at me?" he asked nonchalantly. "Don't play dumb with us Kakashi, tell us about Naruto. He looks awfully similar to your sensei doesn't he?" asked Kurenai. Kakashi adopted a thinking pose, "Now that you mention it you're right, what a coincidence," he replied. Asuma, Kurenai and Guy all sighed knowing that they wouldn't be able to get answers from Kakashi. They decided to sit back and instead watch the fight closely, maybe there was something there that could give them more clues. But Naruto. Naruto stood in the same position eyeing down his opponent, he still had the same confident smile on his face. He had seen Gaara fight Lee nearly a month ago, and he saw the destructive power that boy held, and he was certain that he probably grew even stronger in the past month. That didn't matter to Naruto though, he was confident in his own growth and progression, and he knew that he could take Gaara easily. Kakashi and Jiraiya trained him for this moment, and he worked incredibly hard in that month. He wanted to make his father and mother proud, and he wanted to prove a point to everyone here. Naruto Uzumaki, the demon child of Konoha, was no more, in front of everyone was the new Naruto. It was Naruto Namikaze, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, and the future Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. Soon the people recovered from their state of stupor and disbelief. Genma walked over to the middle of the two boys, before slowly glancing at the two. Neither of them spared him a glance, they stared dead straight as they sized each up. "I'm sure you two already know the rules, now are you ready to begin this fight?" he asked. "I was born ready," Naruto replied as Gaara nodded slowly. Genma nodded in understanding, he soon raised his arm to the air. "Alright, here is the final fight for this round of the finals. The winner obviously advances through to the next stage, where he will be pit up against either Sasuke Uchiha, Shino Aburame or Temari of the Sand," he declared. "Ah, I see the team won, that's good. I can't wait to kick his ass in the finals," Naruto thought. Genma then glanced at the two one final time, and he could see that the two were ready to go. Hajime. Chapter 6. The heir to the yellow flash. Hajime. Immediately after starting the fight between these two promising genin, Genma was intelligent enough to quickly move out of the way. Naruto ran at Gaara at an insane pace, the stoic Retid however, remained standing in the same position as he was not even flinching from the pacey blonde. Naruto grew closer to Gaara, and before he could truly fight his fellow Jinchuriki, he knew he first had to test him and gauge his skills. He quickly summoned 5 shadow clones, and all 5 of them jumped towards the Chunin, ready to attack the unmoving figure. Gaara scoffed and simply gathered sand from his gourd and swiped the squad of clones away, all dispelling leaving a plume of smoke. Naruto stopped in his tracks and assessed the situation. He was intrigued, he was beginning to make notes in his mind. It looks like he's really a proficient mid-range and long-range fighter, so to win I have to make him fight my way. I need to force him to adapt to my close-range fighting style, he thought to himself. Before Naruto put his plan into place though, he continued to attack Gaara with a flurry of shadow clones and shuriken, all of which his opponent easily managed to defend against. Page's booth. Up in the booth, the Kazukiage watched the battle in intrigue, there was yet to be any major moves on either side. To the common civilian, the earlier stages seemed rather boring and lackadaisical, but to a ninja's eyes, it was clear that Naruto was playing it smart and safe by first testing the capabilities of his opponent. He would be foolish to rush in headstrong without really knowing Gaara's powers. Sasuke's fight was already quite a delight to watch, but now Naruto-kun vs Gaara, this day just keeps getting more and more interesting. I might have to pay closer attention to Naruto-kun, he may prove to be yet another possible prospect. The attack may as well be delayed for a few hours. Battle zone. Gaara was getting frustrated by Naruto's lackluster attacks, he was aware that he could do much more than these petty and weak shuriken and clones. He felt the chakra in the forest of death and he knew Naruto was just like him, but he had yet to display those powers of his. He had been waiting for this moment for the past month, he had dreamed about finally fighting against someone who could give him a challenge. At first the Uchiha intrigued him, but as soon as he felt the familiar chakra in the forest, he knew that he had to change his target. Gaara was done playing these trivial games, he wanted to fight Naruto demon to demon. Naruto raised a suspicious eyebrow at Gaara, the Redeed in front of him began to finally show a bit of emotion. Instead of his blank face, Gaara began to chuckle darkly, the expression and the killer intent he released even gave Naruto the chills. This is one creepy dude, he said to himself with a rather nervous gulp. What are you laughing at? He yelled. You know, you and I are a lot alike. We're actually the same inside, he said with a sinister grin on his face. Naruto's eyes widened in shock, he had a suspicion about what he was saying, but he wasn't entirely sure just yet. What do you mean? He asked cautiously. Asuna Ninja's chuckle grew only darker, we hold the same beast, we hold the same burden, he sold rather softly for only Naruto to hear. The crowd around them whispered among themselves, they were unsure what was going on. So far the start of the fight had been a bit of a letdown, and they couldn't necessarily hear what Naruto and Gaara were talking about, the two spoke just loud enough for each other to hear, but not enough for the crowd. Naruto stared at Gaara with a blank expression, how many? He asked. The Redeed chuckled and lifted a single finger, Naruto quickly take note of that and nodded. Gaara then proceeded to attack once more, this time sending a large fist made of sand towards Naruto. The young blonde quickly summoned a shadow clone, and they focused their chakra onto the original Naruto's hand, creating a blue ball of pure chakra. Rasengan, he yelled as incoming fist collided with the jutsu. It resulted in a large explosion of sand. Nice try, but 9 beats 1. The whole audience was left speechless, even both cages couldn't believe their eyes. They had just witnessed a long-lost jutsu, a technique known to only 3 other people, all 3 of which happened to be legendary ninjas. Kakashi Haddock the Copy Nin, the legendary Sanin Jiraiya the Galand and of course the Yondaime Hokage. The Konoha 12 were unable to move or react, they couldn't believe that the jutsu Naruto used had that much power behind it. Many of the genin had similar thoughts crossing their minds, they were wondering what happened to the old Naruto, where he learned these new techniques, and how he got so strong suddenly. The Naruto in front of them was not the same Naruto they knew just a few weeks back. This was a whole new Naruto. It was quite reminiscent to the days of the Yondaime Hokage, and honestly people didn't know how to react to this. Of course, the questions only began to increase more and more, just who was Naruto Uzumaki really? Gaara merely grinned, this gets better I see. 9 versus 1, the raccoon versus the fox, he said as a sickly smile and a bloodthirsty laugh erupted from the usually silent and stoic boy. Well then 9, you better not hold back, I came here for a fight and I expect a fight. Prepare yourself or die, yelled Gaara as he quickly gathered a large wave of sand and sent them at his opponent's way. Naruto was taken by surprise by the sudden attack, thankfully he reacted just in time to jump up high into the air to dodge the massive attack, but while in the air, Gaara threw projectiles of sand into his opponent with his Suna Shuriken Jutsu. The young blonde quickly dodged these attacks with a simple substitution. Suna no Keiwan. The massive replica of Shukaku's sand arm sprung forth from the ground and started swiping around the arena, Naruto was left to take a defensive stance against this attack. He had barely managed to dodge them, he ran around the arena dodging these attacks, but while running away he was tactically placing explosive tags on tree stumps around the area. Eventually though he was caught by Gaara's attack and he was held into the air, but before he could squeeze his hand, Naruto escaped with yet another substitution, but this time the tree stump he substituted with had an explosive tag. The hand of sand exploded destroying the jutsu. Gaara chuckled, sneaky little fox, now quit running and fight me, he demanded. Naruto emerged from one of the few remaining trees in the arena, he jumped up from the tree and summoned 2 shadow clones, the 2 clones grabbed him from the arms while in mid-air and they threw him towards Gaara before dispelling themselves. While flying towards his opponent, Naruto quickly managed to form his attack, Gaara was taken by surprise and he didn't have time to react as his opponent instantly managed to attack him with his powerful new jutsu. Rasengan, yelled Naruto, he plunged the blue ball of chakra into his unsuspecting opponent's gut. Gaara was sent flying towards the wall and Naruto grinned at the damage from his attack. Naruto inspected the area where Gaara landed, he couldn't see much due to the dust surrounding the area, but soon he shivered in fear as he heard the same familiar laugh. The dust around settled and Gaara walked out with sand engulfing his whole body. Quite a powerful attack you have, too bad for you, my Suna no Yoroi managed to neutralize it. Naruto inspected his opponent and smiled lightly after his rather confident statement. "Thank again," he said while pointing at his forehead. Gaara placed his hand into his forehead and there he felt some sort of liquid. Upon further inspection he realized that his right hand was soaked in a bit of blood. His eyes widened in shock, but his smile grew more and more in size. "You made me bleed, I can't believe it, twice in a month." "Yet another worthy opponent," he said. "Breaks a back," he yelled as he unleashed yet another giant wave of sand, but unlike last time this one much larger in scale and size. Naruto gulped nervously at the large wave of sand. With no other alternative he resorted to one last resort. "Kuchius no Jutsu," he yelled. A large puff of smoke engulfed the arena and within that smoke appeared a gigantic red toad wielding a shield and a sasamata. "Hello there Naruto-sama, Gamaken here at your service. I'm impressed you managed to gather the chakra required to summon me," said the toad. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. The wave of sand was easily defended against by Gamaken using his sasamata to guard the two of them to attack. Thankfully for Naruto the stadium they fought in was of a massive caliber that it was large enough to even hold summoned creatures such as Gamaken, Gamahiro and Gamabunta. This stadium was not only used by Genin in the Chunin exams, this stadium was used by Cages, Jonin and Anbu to fight in for practice or for show, and so obviously, it was made to withstand even the largest of summons. Thankfully there was also a powerful barrier surrounding the combatants to protect the civilians and audience members from stray projectiles or attacks. The crowd gasped in awe and shock at the sight of the large toad, for a Genin to summon at this age, let alone a creature of this magnitude was unheard of. Jiraiya watched from the Cage's booth with a proud smile as his student managed to summon one of the three great battle toads of Mount Myaboku. This served only to boost his ego yet again, he felt as if he was the greatest sensei of all time. After the wave of sand dispersed Naruto hastily took to the offensive, his toad summoned Gamaken descended his weapon to try and crush his opponent. Gaara countered this with one of his most powerful defensive techniques, Seikmzet Ibnjio. Shukaku no Tate. This jutsu was done in a much larger scale than normal. The toy-like sand replica of Shukaku surrounded Gaara and it rose to around 30 feet. It managed to withstand the brunt force of the Sasamata before crumbling down and as soon as the defense disintegrated, Naruto threw an explosive kunai at Gaara. The Redeed managed to respond yet again, this time with his Suna no Tate, but the shield couldn't fully form before the kunai exploded. Because of this a bit of the explosion managed to hit Gaara, his whole upper body was left unharmed, but his left leg was slightly bloodied and a little bit burned from the attack. Luckily for him though Shukaku was quickly healing his wounds. Naruto noticed the burn marks on Gaara's legs were quickly disappearing, this only proved that he too was a Jinchuriki, no normal ninja would have that quick rate of healing and recovery. "I'm impressed you're still standing, honestly, though it's time to end this," Naruto said, with that he quickly teleported back to Gaara. Unlike last time he didn't need the kunai because during the initial Rasengan attack, Naruto marked his opponent at the very same time. Naruto appeared just in front of Gaara again and before Gaara could defend himself, he formed yet another Rasengan and he plunged it into his solar plexus, sending him off to collide with the wall. "This is really getting interesting now." Haha. Naruto's eyes widened in shock, the tone in which Gaara said that was much deeper than it should have been. He watched soon as his opponent emerged from the area of attack, but he wasn't the same Gaara as before. Instead in front of him was a downsized form of Shukaku. "Fuck, here we go," Naruto told himself. Being a Jinchuriki he knew firsthand of the power of a Jinchuriki when given hold of their Bijuu's chakra. Now he had unleashed the beast and now he was into a real fight. The crowd gasped at the demonic form in front in the stage, they didn't know what it was, but they were frightened by the powerful killer intent being released by the demonic figure. Page's booth. The Kazekage scowled upon seeing Gaara's demonic form, he had hoped to watch their battle a little further, but with Gaara getting pushed to the limits, he had no other choice but to commence his attack prematurely. The Kazekage slyly grabbed a smoke bomb in his pocket and unleashed it into the ground. The audience's attention quickly turned to the Cage's booth and as soon as the smoke receded, they saw the Kazekage holding their beloved Hokage with a kunai to his throat, the crowd roared in anger upon the sight. Immediately after this the Kazekage jumped up with the Hokage in his arms, Jiraiya of course followed suit to protect his sensei. The Kazekage landed onto the roof of the arena and once there the Hokage noticed 4 of his minions on the corners of the roof, about to complete a jutsu. Unlucky for them though Jiraiya arrived at the scene just in time before a powerful barrier jutsu was placed between Jiraiya and the 2 cages. Stance. The civilians were all panicking at the sudden attack. Immediately after the smoke erupting from the Cage's booth, there was a flurry of explosions going off in different areas of Konoha. The civilians all tried to run away from the arena in hopes of finding safety, but unfortunately for them there was someone in the crowd who unleashed a rather potent sleeping jutsu. Many of the civilians fell onto the ground with an unforgiving thud as they fell to a deep slumber. The ninjas though managed to repel this attack and so they remained standing. But then all the Suna and Odo ninjas in the area began to attack the Konoha shinobi. More and more reinforcements for Suna and Odo arrived in the scene. The Jonin and Anbu in the premises quickly acted and fought off the invading forces. The Konoha 12 however remained in one corner unsure of what to do, none of them had ever experienced something like this before. And out of nowhere 5 Odo ninjas appeared out of nowhere about to strike the genin. Normally genin such as Niji and Sasuke would be able to fight these guys off, but unfortunately for them they were still recovering from their fight just a while ago. But before the Odo ninjas could strike the genin, a certain masked jonin arrived just in time to strike down the enemies. Sakura and Sasuke looked on in surprise at the man's sudden arrival. "Kakashi-sensei," they yelled. But Naruto. The young blonde was utterly confused as to what was happening. 1 second he was fighting Gaara head to head, and now Konoha seemed to be at war with both Odo and Suna. He turned his head back to Gaara, only to find that the crazed young man was running off from the arena, even though his logic told him to follow him and try to restrain him. But in the end, he couldn't just leave Konoha in the midst of such an attack. He decided to go help the rest of Konoha protect against the incoming forces, and as soon as things cleared up he would go on and try to catch up on Gaara. With Naruto being one to follow his gut instinct, he ran towards the main source of carnage within Konoha. But before running towards that direction, he faced his toad summon with a stern face. "Anakin, I think it's probably best we stay here and help the Konoha ninjas fight off these invading forces," he said. Anakin nodded and jumped off from the arena into the streets of Konoha. After leaving the stadium he quickly found many large snake summons roaming the city wreaking havoc. Why is it always the snakes? He asked himself before jumping towards a snake nearly his size. Naruto sighed. "Damn it, it looks like we'll need a bit of backup," he muttered. Naruto watched from the top of Gamaken's head. His blood was boiling after leaving the stadium as he witnessed the carnage and blood being brought by this cowardly surprise attack. He knew the Gamaken wouldn't be enough to battle all these snakes, and so when he saw one large snake summon breaking down one of the walls to Konoha, Naruto had exhausted enough chakra in summoning Gamaken that he was unsure if he could summon another toad. He was lucky enough as is that he managed to summon Gamaken in the first place, since he was still struggling with his higher level summons. "Don't worry kid, I got this." Naruto turned to see Jiraiya using chakra to enhance his voice and yelling from the top of the roof as he was stuck in a high level barrier with the Hokage. "Uchius. Yatai Kuzushi no Jutsu," he yelled. This time the summon alone managed to defeat a summon by calling the toad forth to land on his opponent. Naruto smirked upon seeing the large green toad known as Gamahiro standing on top of an unconscious snake summon. "Gamahiro at your service," said the toad. "Gamahiro, I need you to help Gamaken and I fight off these snake summons," yelled Jiraiya. The dual katana wielding toad saluted to the young blonde before jumping to the side of his battle partner Gamaken. "It's good to see you Gamahiro," said Gamaken. The katana wielding toad nodded back. "Thanks Gamaken, let's show these snakes who's boss." With Kakashi. The masked Jonin watched as his blonde student ran after the Ichibi's Jinchuriki. After having dispatched the men who tried to attack the genin, he quickly handed them orders. "Alright kids, I know none of you are really prepared for something like this, but you're now all genin of Konoha, and as genin you are all required to help Konoha in this time of need. As your superior officer, I'll be giving you all specific orders which you all need to follow. Are we clear?" he explained in a stern and serious tone. The Jonin looked at both his students first. "Sasuke, Sakura, I need you two to go and follow the Gar kid, and I want you two to bring Shikamaru and Shino with you," he ordered. The four nodded and quickly ran off to catch up with the retreated Jinchuriki. He then turned to Team Guy. "As for you three, I need you to help evacuate the people in this stadium. It's dangerous right now for them to lie here half asleep from that damn jutsu. Don't worry though, I'll get some Anbu to watch over you guys just in case," he said. Then finally he looked at Ino, Choji, Kiba and Hinata. "I want you guys to do the same thing Team Guy is doing, but head over to the opposite side of the stadium. I'll make sure to have Anbu guard you guys just in case," ordered Kakashi. With Hiruzen. "Fukuku, looks like we're here for a wee reunion, all we're missing is Tsunade," the Kazekage whispered at Hiruzen's ear. "What are you talking about?" the Hokage yelled in anger. Jiraiya watched unsure of what to do in the current situation. He could only watch as the Kazekage suddenly used his free hand to rip off the skin off his face. The Sannin was first disgusted at the sight, but soon his eyes widened in shock upon seeing the true face of the Kazekage. "Orochimaru, you bastard," he yelled in anger. Hiruzen scowled upon seeing Orochimaru's face off the corner of his eye. He knew there was something oddly familiar about the Kazekage, and here it is, it was his wayward student all along. "Fukuku, it's good to see you two once more, it's been far too long." While Orochimaru was speaking, Hiruzen slyly elbowed the snake Sannin in the gut. While he was in the midst of speaking, Orochimaru winced, and his hold on the Hokage loosened, giving him a chance to escape and jump back to join Jiraiya. Orochimaru began to chuckle. "It looks like you still have a wee bit of skill in those bones, old man." I may not be as strong as I used to be, Orochimaru, but I am still powerful enough to defeat you, Hiruzen replied confidently. Hey, now you two, don't forget I'm here too, you'd be an idiot to fight us both, Orochimaru. Just give up now, the perverted Sannin exclaimed. Orochimaru then began to chuckle menacingly, he held out one hand seal, and soon 3 coffins began to rise from the ground. Each coffin had a number placed on the top. There were 3 numbers all in the all, they had number 1, 2 and 4 in their kanji forms. Hiruzen's eyes widened in disbelief, and his blood ran cold as he gazed upon the forbidden jutsu his sensei created, he couldn't believe that his student knew how to perform it. Jiraiya, we need to stop him, Hiruzen yelled as he weaved through hand seals. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he yelled, soon Jiraiya caught on as to what was happening, and he followed suit with his sensei. Luckily, they had enough to stop the first 2 coffins from rising from the ground, but it wasn't enough to stop the coffin with the kanji of 4 from rising from the ground. Orochimaru's sinister laugh echoed across the rooftop as soon as the coffin opened. Ito Tensei, Orochimaru whispered. Hiruzen was enraged and Jiraiya was lost for words, in front of them was the deceased body of the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze, the lifeless body's eyes opened immediately, and the figure walked out of the coffin to face the 2 of them. Hello Jiraiya sensei, Hiruzen sensei. It's good to see you too, but I only wish it were under better circumstances, Minato said solemnly. Jiraiya sighed, he was trying his best to restrain his anger at Orochimaru. Damn it, you bastard, how could you use my own student against me? He was like a son to me, and now I'm forced to battle him. I'll make you pay, Orochimaru, he thought to himself. Minato looked around and grimaced at the carnage surrounding Konoha. He sighed in frustration because he knew he was now contributing to it as Orochimaru's puppet. I'm sorry sensei, but unfortunately I have no choice, he said. Hiruzen nodded his head in understanding. Don't worry Minato, it's not your fault, you have no say in the matter, he replied. Orochimaru scowled, enough talk, attack them Minato, he ordered. The Yondaime Hokage did his best to resist following the Sannin's orders, he stood there holding out as best as he could. What is this? I told you, attack them. Stop wasting time, yelled the Snake Sannin. Minato continued resisting to the best he could. I can't hold out any longer, before we fight please tell me what's become of Naruto. He asked. Hiruzen smirked as did Jiraiya, your son is a ninja just like you and Kushina were, he's a hardworking kid and he continues to surprise me every day. Kakashi and I have taken him under our wing as a student, explained Jiraiya. Naruto acts a lot more like Kushina than he does you, but he has shown glimpses of you in the past as well. He's a chip off the old block Minato and a fine young man, I couldn't be prouder of Naruto, and I'm sure you'll be proud of your own son as well. You know his goal is to be Hokage one day. Minato chuckled, oh really? He wants to be Hokage as well? He asked curiously. Hiruzen nodded, one day I might end up handing him the title, but for now I'll hold on to it, he replied. Minato smiled, but soon he was beginning to lose control of his body. A small frown quickly marred the deceased Hokage's face. I'm sorry you two, but it looks like I can't delay any further, he said as he grabbed a Hiraishin kunai off his pocket. Hiruzen sighed before going into a battle stance. Jiraiya too joined alongside his sensei. They were both conflicted in this battle, they wanted to stop Orochimaru, but to get to him they had to first go through Minato. But Sasuke. The group as a whole followed the trail of destruction that Gaara left, but as soon as they grew closer to Gaara's location, there seemed to be a roadblock in the way. Stop right there. The group looked over to the source of the voice, and there they saw Temari and Kankuro standing there prepared to fight the group. Shikamaru sighed upon the sight, troublesome, he muttered to himself. Sasuke, Sakura, you two go ahead, me and Shino will handle these guys, said Shikamaru confidently. Are you sure, Shikamaru? Sakura asked. The lazy Nara nodded. Go you two, we can handle this, Sakura thanked him, and the 2 members of Team 7 were off in search of Gaara. DCH, how noble of you, little boy, but this time I'm winning against you, she yelled. Shino on the other hand were staring out at Kankuro. I presume Shikamaru wants to his fight a solo one, he silently told himself. Kankuro smirked as he stared at Shino. I wasn't able to show off my true ability a while ago, but prepare yourself now, bug boy, it's time for me to unveil my true powers, he yelled. But Sasuke and Sakura. The 2 arrived to find Gaara practically covered in his armor of sand, and just as they arrived, Gaara began to emit an evil laugh. Finally, I was expecting to see Naruto, but oh well, I guess the last Uchiha will suffice for now. Quite the treat for mother. Sasuke stared out the Jinchuriki with no fear whatsoever, but Sakura on the other was easily unnerved by the killer intent radiating from the auburn-haired Chunin. She was forced to take a step back out of fear. Sasuke stood his ground, but he was a bit too excited to fight the young Jinchuriki. From what he's seen, Gaara was quite a powerful opponent and he was excited to test his skills against this kid, but with no restrictions or rules whatsoever. Sasuke confidently jumped in to quickly fight Gaara, Kaiten. Nkakek no jutsu, he yelled as a fireball flew towards Gaara. Gaara immediately followed suit with Suna no Tate to protect himself from the incoming fire attack. "Sasuke-kun, what are you doing?" Sakura yelled in shock. "Don't interfere, Sakura, I want to fight him myself." "I can handle him," Sasuke yelled. "You idiot, we'd be better if we worked together." "Don't, Sakura, I want to do this myself and you can't even contribute much to this." "I know I can do this myself." "Do not interfere," he hissed in anger. Sakura was hurt by that statement, but she knew it was somewhat true, she had to stay back. Even she had to admit she would only be a burden to him right now. Sasuke smirked and faced Gaara once more. "Tsunade Jashu," he yelled as he shot snakes towards the Jinchuriki. Gaara took another defensive stance with his Sabakuha as a wall of sand blocked the incoming snakes. "Is that all you got, Uchiha?" "Sabaku." Hando, Gaara yelled as two massive hands of sand began to surround Sasuke in hopes of crushing the young Uchiha. Sasuke scowled before releasing Kaiten Rika no Jutsu to turn the incoming hands of sand into glass with the sheer heat of his flames. Sasuke smirked before kicking the glass hands apart. Suna no Kawen. Another massive hand of sand emerged trying to capture Sasuke, but the Uchiha opened his Sharingan and he managed to dodge and anticipate the movement of the gigantic hands. Then Gaara decided to take his attacks up a notch, while in his miniature Shukaku form, he began to release Suna's shuriken toward Sasuke. Kaiten Nkakuk no Jutsu Sasuke used as a counter. Gaara immediately followed suit with Renden Suna's Shigure, but this time Sasuke didn't have time to dodge the attacks. He was hit by a flurry of sand projectiles. He was still recovering from his fight with Niji, so the sand projectiles that hit him managed to only further his injuries. Sasuke grimaced in pain and he clutched his bloody torso. Gaara was running out of patience. He wanted to deal with Sasuke to finally reach Naruto. While Sasuke was injured by those shots, Gaara decided to toy with his opponent for a little bit. "Let me reintroduce you to Pain Uchiha," he said menacingly. "But Naruto." The young blonde felt like he had done his part in helping protect Konoha. He left Gamaken and Gamma Hero there to serve as backup while he ran after Gaara. While in search of Gaara, he stopped by a certain forest clearing, and there he found a panting Shikamaru and Shino standing there looking after the unconscious bodies of Temari and Kankuro. "What the hell happened here?" Naruto asked in shock. Shikamaru turned back to see Naruto. "We just dealt with these two, and Shino and I are done for now." "Naruto, your two teammates ran up ahead in search of Gaara. Go quickly, I don't know what's happened thus far, but Gaara is a powerful opponent even for Sasuke," he said. Naruto's eyes widened in shock. "What direction did they go?" he asked. Shikamaru pointed north. "I wish I could come along, Naruto, but me and Shino barely have any energy or chakra left and someone needs to look after these two," he said while pointing at Kankuro and Temari. Naruto nodded in understanding. "Don't worry, you two, you've both done enough. Let me handle Gaara," but as soon as Naruto said that he heard a massive roar appear from a few kilometers north. The gargantuan entity of sand rose from the ground in the shape of a tanuki. Shikamaru and Shino looked on in fear of the being. "What the fuck is that?" Shikamaru yelled in fear. Naruto's heart nearly stopped. If Sasuke and Sakura were fighting him, then they were in definite danger now that he's released his Biju. "Damn it, I need to go now, Shikamaru," he yelled as he ran as fast as he could towards the Biju. "But Sakura." The young Pinkat screamed for dear life. Sasuke was bloodied, bruised and plain beaten, and now that Gaara kid turned into this massive monster. She didn't know what to do, she knew she couldn't handle this sort of fight, and her only protection was now down and out. Gaara in his Shukaku form turned towards the bloodied and unconscious Sasuke. He used his gigantic hand to grab the boy. He could have easily killed him and crushed him there, but he chose to place him to a nearby tree where he had a massive cluster of sand surrounding him. Then he turned his attention to the young Pinkat in the vicinity. "Don't think I forgot about you now. I'm saving the Uchiha for later, but for now I guess I may as well just kill you," he said while chuckling. Gaara raised his massive hand of sand and was about to swipe away at the tree Sakura stood on. The Pinkat watched as her life was about to be taken away from her. Tears fell from her face. At this point of time she just accepted her inevitable death. It was coming and there was nothing she could do about it. But just before the hand swept at her, she closed her eyes instinctively. Death seemed inevitable at this point, but just a few milliseconds before the gigantic hand of sand managed to decimate the area she stood on. He was running a wee bit late. He arrived only to see Gaara on the verge of killing Sakura. He pumped as much chakra to his legs and he ran as fast as he could. Luckily he managed to reach Sakura just in the nick of time, carrying her away from the danger and jumping off to the top of a nearby tree. Naruto carried the unsuspecting Sakura in a bridal style. He glanced back from the corner of his eye to stare at Gaara. Naruto was beyond angry. Had he been a little bit later, he was certain the girl he loved would have died. Sakura opened his teary eyes in shock to find Naruto carrying her. A small blush adorned her cheeks, but overall, she was just happy to see Naruto. Recently she had been a bit scared of Naruto with the events transpiring in the Forest of Death, she was still frightened by Naruto, but seeing him made her feel a sense of relief, seeing as how he did just save her life. Naruto turned back to face Sakura, he gave her a soft smile to try and calm her down. "Sorry I was late, are you alright Sakura-chan?" he asked. Sakura nodded shakily, "Yeah, I think I'm alright, thanks Naruto," she replied. Naruto nodded before allowing her to stand again. "Where's Sasuke?" he asked fearfully. Sakura bit her bottom lip before pointing at the cluster of sand stuck into the side of a tree. Naruto saw this and nodded, "I see," he replied. Gaara chuckled, "Well, I'm glad you finally made it, I left your friend the Uchiha on the wall over there as a precaution. If you want him to be set free, you'll first have to defeat me, but you only have an hour to do so. If we pass an hour, then I will crush him with my sands," he yelled. "You're a sick bastard, I'll make you pay for this, I will not let you get away with this." Naruto then turned back to the Pinket, "Sakura-chan, I suggest you step back for now and watch from afar. Let me deal with him myself," he said confidently. Sakura nodded before jumping back away from the fight, but before heading back she turned back to Naruto. "I'm sorry if I've been avoiding you Naruto, but thank you so much," she said. Naruto's eyes widened in shock while his cheeks reddened considerably. "Don't worry about it Sakura-chan, I will always be here when you need me," he replied. The young blonde then turned back to Gaara with a serious expression, it looked rather heroic. Naruto stared out his opponent, his haori flapping in the wind. Naruto was like the spitting image of his own father when he saved Kushina from the Kyuubi. History had a way of repeating itself sometimes. "Prepare yourself Gaara, as the future Hokage of Konoha I will not let you harm Konoha further. I will stop you right here right now. What if Naruto has Yondaime's legacy in Konoha?" And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.